Sunlight begins to fade now, and I feel like I'm losing time, but I don't know how I'm here. The sunlight has turned to gray, and I feel like I'm losing love again. I don't know how I'm here. I could feel your heartbeat. I could feel it somewhere you're looking down. I could feel your heartbeat. I could feel it somewhere you're looking down. 'Cause it's you I'm loving, and it's you that I wanna breathe, and it's you I'm loving.
Hello everyone, welcome to Sim Racers World TV. I'm Hasse Rømer. Today I'll be joined by the lovely young Jack Werrell, and we're here for the PorscheSport 2 hours of Spa, a three-way multi-class race from the legendary place in the Flemish, or it actually is not the Flemish, it's the Wallonian Ardennes, a beautiful place, picturesque indeed. I think we're in for some very, very good racing here tonight. Jack, what is your expectations of what we're coming into here?
First of all, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and it's the first time we've been in the commentary box together, so I'm really looking forward to that. But obviously, this is the second PorscheSport 2-hour race, and if Silverstone is anything to go off, we're going to be in for a treat. Lots of close racing, and obviously this one, there is the lack of the LMP1 cars. They were ruled out, and we don't have those available to the drivers for this one, but surely that just brings the field closer. All in different variations of GT cars. Obviously we've got the GT4s, the GT3s, and obviously the GTEs, so the field is going to be closer than ever, and we're going around such an amazing circuit like Spa. We're definitely in for a treat.
I think you're very much correct on that one. A treat it's going to be, and we're having qualifying underway. Well, right about now, we're just about 20 minutes into it. We've got the last 25 minutes of qualifying on display right now. Fastest time set in the GTEs. Scott D. Andrews of G-Drive Racing, the number 94 car, was put in a 2:12.46 with teammate Bram van Putten in second. And still a couple of drivers who's yet to put in times around the different classes, and still plenty of time to go as well. And so much excitement, I think, here. Indeed, you mentioned the last race of the PorscheSport special events from Silverstone, which was indeed hugely interesting. And you did also mention the Porsche 919 LMP1's car. I think the LMP1s, they made for some spectacular viewing, having to pass the GT4s. But for the sake of our drivers, perhaps it's welcome, let's just say that we've gotten rid of them. What's your take on that, Jack?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the speed differentiation between all of these cars is quite large. But then when you've got an LMP1 car almost topping over 300 kilometers an hour, and the closing speed on a much slower GT4 car was really a lot to handle, not just for the LMP1 cars to work their way through. The GT4 cars, they were the slowest cars on the field, so they've got a lot to think about. They've always got to let traffic by, and I think getting rid of those LMP1 cars was the right call. But it's obviously some drivers, it might have brought them down a little bit, because obviously driving such a highly powered machine with that much downforce, it really is an experience. But taking that away has just brought the field closer together. And like you mentioned, we've got a couple of drivers posting very, very quick times. We've seen Scott Andrews go quick, and a 2:12 around here is ballistically quick. His teammate Bram van Putten, who we're looking at the moment, has just been demoted down to provisional P3. Because the Sim RC driver, Jürgen Frank, has posted 2:12.78, so 1/100th quicker than Bram van Putten in provisional P2. So a great lap from him, and I'm sure he's going to be looking to make inroads into the provisional pole sitter of Scott Andrews. But this isn't the only place where we've got drivers very close together. This is Ewan Marshall in one of the Meraki racing machines. He has gone 300ths quicker than Austin Greatorex in the Rice Racing GTE car, and it's pretty much the same story all the way down the field, Hasse. We've got very, very close battles just for qualifying time, all the way through the GT Cup cars, and then even going into the GT4s.
That's so good to see. Time margins are indeed marginal, and that usually makes for some exciting racing when it comes to that part of it as well. By the way, can I just take this chance to say hello and good evening to everyone out there joining us on Facebook, of course, on Sim Racers World TV, on Twitch on Sim Racers World TV, on YouTube, that is, on Sim Racers World TV as well, and then on the Strasse Facebook page, of course, our sponsor alongside PorscheSport for this lovely event that's been put together. And the level, Jack, the level here tonight, we have some very spicy drivers on display on the grid, and I think your predictions of treats to come will indeed come true. As we're watching Maxim Ramstein into the bus stop, he's gonna be contesting some kind of traffic here from the quicker, well, they're both a GT and a Cup car in behind there. And then actually, they do look a bit different, but especially when the colors are so close to these two cars here, they do look a bit alike. They're one of the Simpac cars. Beautiful livery there as well. Ramstein back in the pits. And with that said, we are heading in towards the last 20 minutes of qualifying. So this is where things get spicy indeed. This is the sharp end of affairs. Daniel Perry for Fury Simsport, the number 28 Cayman, as someone's gone round. That's one of the G-Drive cars, and that nearly got Tang indeed, but everybody getting well out the way there. Was that Van Putten? No, it certainly wasn't, because he's in behind these cars. So I think it was Andrews, provisional pole setter, now leaving the pits again.
Yeah, a very odd incident from Scott. We've seen him post purple sectors from top to bottom. Sector 2, Sector 3 and Sector 4 have all been purple times from Scott. So he's definitely pushing hard, and with a 45-minute qualifying session, he's got plenty of time to do so. And like you mentioned, only 20 minutes of the session to go. And with it being a 2-minute rotation around the Spa-Francorchamps Circuit, it really will dissipate rather quickly. You were saying we're at the spicy end of the field, but we've got some amazing battles for not exactly provisional polling class. This is Andrew Hopley, only 700ths slower than Paul Cook ahead in the Fury Simsport car. So Andrew doing everything he can to drag every piece of performance out of the GT4. And the trouble is around here, Hasse, obviously you've got a very wide range of long straights, high downforce corners, low downforce corners. So it is quite a leveling circuit. It doesn't matter how much experience you've got necessarily. It's just about how you can control the car, because every piece of momentum and every little bit of advantage you can get around here is really going to change your perspective on the race.
It really is, and it's one of those places where it's really possible also to stay with drivers who have a little bit more pace in the car because of those long straights. It's also a place that's very unforgiving, both on incidents and also on some very, very treacherous corners indeed. Of course, speaking about the combination of corners that is, I was about to say Blanchemont. Well, Blanchemont, very much one of those corners, because it's so close to flat, yet think in the GTEs, it's taken more or less flat, perhaps a slight lift, but in the other classes, it's going to be spicy. And then, of course, the famous combination of Rouge and Radillon as well. But it also lends itself to some fantastic racing. It's a very, very dynamic circuit. It's a place where it's hard to set up the car. It's a place where compromise is often the fastest way, but that doesn't necessarily make for a car that's easy to drive. So let's see what the coming 2 hours has in store for us. Of course, crossing fingers that we'll see as many of the drivers making it through safely. Especially these couple of opening laps could be chaotic. And Jack, you mentioned something about the starting procedure that I think is very much worth noting and mentioning. Is that the drivers, once they round the bus stop chicane, when they get the race going underway, well, that's basically going to be the green flag for them. So don't be surprised if we see drivers going pretty early there.
Yeah, we did mention that just before the race started. We had an update from one of our race directors, Mr. Ian Roots. Obviously, he is the CEO of Sim Racers World. That is a title he does like to give himself. He's basically reading from top to bottom. Please ensure you read the basic rule pack in the thread. So he's made it really easy for all the drivers to understand. It's just saying that the race director will control the start as per the rules that were stated earlier on this week. So everybody's had plenty of time to read through the rules. And it does say it's pretty strict rules. Anybody who does disobey the race director will be given a drive-through penalty immediately. So definitely got to keep your nose clean in this one. And a drive-through penalty around here. We aren't using the full length of the pit lane. We're just using the shorter pit lane. So it's not quite as long as you would hope. But there will be no racing before the start of before the start of the final chicane. You've got to make sure once you've weaved your way through the bus stop, which you've got to do 2 by 2, you can't go through there single file. You've got to make sure you're side by side going through the bus stop. As soon as you get out of there, it is, I'm assuming, at leader's discretion. That is when racing begins. And obviously, you've got to be careful as well not to overtake a car before the start-finish line, because you might land yourself with a penalty from iRacing themselves. But as far as I'm aware, everybody's been keeping their nose clean so far. We've seen a couple of people have some minor issues during the pre-session practice, and then obviously we got into the main session. Obviously, drivers doing everything they can to get a last bit of practice in before the 2 hours of racing we've got ahead. We've got Ollie Slade in chat, the Mr. Fiercely Forward man, and PorscheSport are trying to decide whether they prefer the orange livery or the yellow liveries best. And I can't decide either. I do love Josh Clogg's orange livery. It's got a sort of Flemish sort of spice to it. I do quite like that. We've seen that before. And I've got to say, just having the matte black on the rear end of that car really does pay credit to it. We do have another Fiercely Forward driver out. I think it's Hugo Schruer when we can find him. I can't find him out on track at the moment. We'll keep an eye out for him. But that is the orange livery mentioned in chat. I've got to say, I do love that livery. Have you got any sort of preference on the liveries, Hasse?
I've seen so much good stuff that I haven't really been able to pick out a favorite, at least one that wasn't massively biased towards my own team, more or less. Team Simpact, which I do think, even without bias, is a very pretty looking car. There is Martin van Rooijwijk, good friend of mine indeed. Here's Martin, a fast guy indeed as well. The son of a former Dutch motorbike racer as well. So that's a bit of info there. And Martin, 9th at the moment in the GTs. Now it's worth noting that it's not only in the GTs that we have qualifiers at the moment. I think that's very much worth delving into. Josh Mellon for Vibe Esports is in the lead, provisionally at least, for the time being, by half a second, in front of HM Engineering, the 959 car of Jordan Weeks. And then we have a GT actually mixing it up in the ranks, probably not really having set a proper time then. And then the car we looked at for some time before, the PorscheSport car of Josh Camp. We've got SROC Racing Forces with Vince Peters behind the wheel and behind there as well. And they're all pretty much within a second there, the first 4 cars. So close orders as well between Tom Metherell and Ruben van Buell in the Meraki racing car. Or that's the Buell brothers, of course. Tom Metherell it is in the Meraki racing car.
I've got to say though, we did mention liveries earlier. The that new Meraki livery, obviously they've just gone through a massive sort of revamp with their liveries. They used to run obviously the yellow and blue livery with, or predominantly yellow, flashes of blue and then bits of black in between. But I've got to say that new livery with the spec map as well does look really, really good. And if you are in the chat and slightly confused as to what a spec map is, that is just applying the various layers to make the car look as shiny or as dull as you want it to. We've seen plenty of different spec maps on show. We've got a couple of cars which are predominantly matte, so a very non-shiny sort of surface. We've got some with metallic-y bits. Looks like the Meraki car have gone for that sort of style as well. And obviously we've seen some cars which have got chrome on the side of them, of which we've got, this is Josh Clark. I was looking for Hugo Drouet, but I can't find him at the moment. He's not quite out on track just as yet. He has set a time on the circuit. He's done a 1 minute 21.70, an identical time to Gregory Franks ahead in another Meraki racing machine, the number 99 car. But clearly Gregory set the time before Hugo Drouet, or there is just a couple of thousandths between them. So those two are definitely the closest on the field at the moment. It will go all the way back up to Scott Andrews, who has got himself back out onto track. He's just completing his 8th rotation of the Spa circuit. So it really is quite a lengthy drive around here as well. Just under 7 kilometers, so a real distance to go. And it doesn't seem like you could do 7 Ks in 2 minutes with turns in between. But these guys do manage to do it. And the top 3 at the moment, so 2 G-Drive cars and a Sim RC car, are all separated within about half a second. So definitely close between those 2 guys. We've got Martin van Loosnoord closed up to Jürgen Frank in the Sim RC Titan car, but he can't quite make good at the moment. He's just 100th behind. And he is also on, no, he's now going on to his 10th rotation of the circuit, so he's doing everything he can to make the most of this qualifying session. And we've just ticked past 15 minutes to go. We're almost closer to 10 minutes to go now. So they're quickly running out of time, but just steering away from the top end of the field. We've got William Chadwick for the Vibe Esports car, and we did mention it before we went live, Hasse. That Vibe Esports car, it really does look good.
Yeah, it does. It's a very nice interpretation of the kind of forward-facing arrows of the, I want to say, in quotation marks, regular Porsche design, and it's certainly a nice touch with the chrome red on the side. Very stylish indeed, and I'd love to see that car in the sunset here. I think it would look brilliant indeed. Of course, people out there, people in chat, let us know if there's anything we need to improve upon in terms of audio, such things. Be it the first stream that we do together. Yeah, sorry, Jack, but it's the first.
Obviously, we don't. Go on.
I was just gonna say it's the first stream we do together, so there might be some rough edges to file off, just in the zone of technicalities. But I'm sure we'll get that done tonight. And as we've mentioned upon, I think the excitement level here, as you can maybe feel like it's really cooking in the booth. And coming into the last 10 minutes of qualifying now, I think it really should be the same way for these drivers. Interesting to see if I think it's interesting to see if anyone is going to be going for like the lap count people are going to be doing. How much fuel are you going to take? Contra, if you do maybe like 3 laps, might not be enough to get the proper heat into the tires to really be able to put in a good time. So that's something that already here in qualifying, well, strategy might actually have a bit to say with these V7 tires.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen drivers push to the limits. We've just seen Mike Barton using every piece of track and a little bit more coming out of Blanchimont, getting out of the way of a GTE car before he gets hard onto the brakes before the bus stop. Obviously, you more learn the car as you go, because you can hop in the car at the start of the race. You've got nice fresh tyres and a full tank of fuel. You've got to wait for everything to get up to temperature. But obviously the tyres will start to fall off a little bit, and obviously you're only going to get lighter with the fuel falling out of the car. So you are learning pretty much as you go We did get some sort of insider information before the race started, so there is a pit window. Obviously, you can't do the full 2 hours on a full tank of fuel, and I'm guessing drivers will take tyres as well just to squeeze out the extra little bit of time. The expected pit window for everybody is between 60 minutes and 70 minutes into the race, so about halfway through the race, we should start to see cars dive into the pits. That'll be when scheduled pit stops do start to take effect. But obviously, you can't exactly plan for what's going to happen at the start of the race because there are 54 cars on the grid, or that's what we saw at the start. That was how many entries we got. But at the moment, I think we've only got 45, 46 maybe in the session. So that's still no mean feat, though. That's 45 cars all trying to weave their way through what is quite a tight and twisty first sector before you get onto the Camel Straight. So that's the only real place you can start to stretch your legs before you go into the hard braking zone of Les Combes. So it's a lot of hard work at the start of the race, and you've got to. It's almost patience is definitely a virtue around here. You can't push too hard at the start of the race. And I've got even more respect for all the drivers, but specifically for the GT Cup cars. I've had a bit of experience in those, and I only tend to go backwards, Hasse. I don't know whether you've had experience in those, but I can't seem to keep them pointing the right way.
I've actually done a bit of racing, quite a bit of racing in the 911 Cup Car. It's a car that I really enjoy driving. It's a car that sure likes to kick out his tail and wag it about, but it's also a car that really rewards patience and a light touch on the right foot, on the throttle. That said, it's an unforgiving machine as well. We did a 24-hour race at the Nordschleife in it, and that was hectic, let me put it that way. But a very, I think, a very fun car to drive, although also, mildly put, difficult indeed.
Yeah, I've only had limited experience in those, but I never really got to grips with them. I prefer a little bit more downforce personally. But going right back up to the GTE cars, we've got a couple of... we don't really have many big movers in the field at the moment. People have set their sort of benchmark times and are struggling to go any quicker. We're seeing personal bests, but nothing really posted that's shifting the order around. We've got a couple of people swapping positions backwards and forwards at the bottom end of the field, but nothing towards the top. We've still got Scott Andrews on provisional pole position with a 2-minute 12.35, so a very quick time from him, followed by this man on the screens now, Jürgen Frank, in the beautiful SimRC.D Titan machine. So he is following up P2 with a 2 minutes 12.78. 100th behind is Martin van Loosnord. We've mentioned him before. Here he is, the second of the G-Drive Racing X Senior cars. He is P3 at the moment. Then Nicholas Last is currently in P4. Roman Rusnov in what is another G-Drive Racing X-Senior machine. So we've got a G-Drive car P1, P3 and P5. And we will see another Firstly Forward car. Here is Matthew Crisp in the second of the Firstly Forward cars. And I've got to say, I still can't decide. I do agree with PorscheSport in chat. I can't decide between the orange or the yellow. We have got 3 Firstly Forward cars out on the grid. 2 of them are liveried very similar to this. So Matthew Crisp in the yellow one, and Hugo Drouet is also joining him in the yellow variation of the Firstly Forward livery. But we've also got Matthew Crisp. Not Matthew Crisp, we're looking at Matthew Crisp. We've also got, who else have we got? We've got Josh Clogg in the orange. Well, we did have Josh Clogg in the orange car, but he has decided that is the end of his session when he went off track. But with very little time to go, I don't think he'll quite get a time in. Back to the front, here's Matthew Crisp, P6 at the moment, 2 minute 13.68, and almost 7/10 behind. It's Jordan McClone in a livery you're all too familiar with, Hasse.
Yeah, indeed, we have. I was about to say the first team that isn't SimRC or G-Drive. It's not entirely true, but it's the Simpac Natson 7 and 8. Still, I want to say though, it's 5.5 minutes to go, at least on my screen. I hope we're seeing the same thing there in terms of session timing there, Jack. But I think they should have the time to put in another lap or 2, even. Given that I think they will be allowed to complete whatever flying laps they begin before the timer runs out. As we're into the final 5 minutes of qualifying here. And that also means that the PorscheSport 2 hours of Spa is getting very close to getting underway here. Jordan McClone pits in at this moment, so that's interesting. And of course could be a fuel thing here. Matthias Temme in 9th at the moment in the GTs.
Doing a great job is Matthias. I just need to change something in the overlay. I've noticed for some reason he is under the team name of Racing, and that is not what he is. That's not who he is racing for. He is racing for Fury Simsport. I'll see what I can do about that in the meantime. But yeah, like you said, the PorscheSport 2 Hours of Spa is getting ever closer, and PorscheSport have put another Sim RC versus G-Drive battle, and that is screaming Silverstone rematch. There was a great fight between a lot of the G-Drive cars and the Sim RC cars, so it's shaping up to be an absolutely crazy race, and I just can't wait for it to get underway. I know we've only got 5 minutes of the session remaining, and people struggling to eke out any extra time in the session. But what I'll do for you is I'll just put the poll time of every class on screen now. Not that it's easy to see, we had to play around and that's the best we could do. We probably could change it back at some point during the session, but just to ease your eyes, the pole sitter, let's have a look. That's Scott Andrews still. He has posted a 2-minute 12.353. And the pole sitter, or the provisional pole sitter, pardon me, Josh Malin in the Vive Esports car has done a 2-minute 20.160. And Maxime Ramstein, the pole sitter in GT4, has done a 2-minute 29.248. So not a massive variation from top to bottom, just over 15 seconds. But on a circuit that takes you about around 2 minutes to complete, I'm guessing we're going to be at about 4 or 5 laps in before we start seeing the faster GTE cars having to deal with some GT4 traffic, Hasse.
Yeah, that looks sounds pretty exact to me as well. And just to touch upon the GT4 cars actually, because we do have Maxim Ramstein, currently the pole sitter there, in front of Ben Sharp. Oh, that's William Chadwick, of course, of IB Sports, who we're watching at the very moment here. Coming through the bus stop, Ben Sharp and Daniel Perry, 3rd and 4th. They're both for Fury Simsport. 5th is Edward Rabrager, and he's in a Fury Simsports car as well. And just as I say that, the 888 machine of Chris Moretta for Meraki Racing goes 3rd in class. So we are seeing a bit of movement here.
I am just trying to sort out a couple of team names because I've noticed a few that aren't matching up, but this should now fix it. If you hear a bit of background noise, it's because my cat is trying to get in on the action, doing everything she can to watch the PorscheSport 2 Hours of Spa. So sorry about that if you can hear that in the background, trying to dig through my door. But yeah, you mentioned that Jordan Weeks in the HM Engineering machine is still quicker than Tom Emson. You mentioned that earlier on. Towards the start of the stream, that Tom Emson is in one of the Vive Sport GTE cars and hasn't quite worked his way up into the competitive GTE times, but it's still great to see him out there, still keeping on the circuit, and I'm sure during the race he will start to come into his own and work his way back up through the GTE field. But we've seen this previously. We've seen GTE cars struggling to keep up with the pace, but that could be for various reasons. He has just set a personal best time, a 2-minute 14.221. So he's done everything he can to eke out every little bit of time. We've got a couple of cars going back out onto the circuit before the session ends, so they're just hoping to complete a couple of times. Both G-Drive teammates, this is Scott Andrews and Martin van Loosnoord, working together to do what they can to get a fastest lap. That did look like a little bit of team tactics. Scott Andrews keeping his foot planted down the camel straight, giving Martin a nice bit of draft, and Martin has really made the most of that because he has gone almost quicker than he has ever gone through Sector 1 and Sector 2, and he's still pushing forward, and with over half the lap to go, he just manages to negotiate some GT4 traffic. He's keeping his head down, and this will almost be the last chance he gets. In fact, it will be the last chance he gets of posting a time, so everybody else from pretty much now is going to have to decide what they're going to do, whether they're going to push hard and see what they can do with this lap, or just decide that it is the end of the session for those. We've had an issue for Nicholas Lasty. He was just about to click on him, but he's returned to the pit lane, so that's the end of the session for him. Jürgen Frank, he has not managed to improve massive amounts. He went 2 seconds slower on his previous qualifying time, so he isn't going any quicker in this final stage of the session. We've got Roman Rusinov in another G-Drive car. I think he just got to the line before the clock ticked over the 45-minute mark, so we're already at the end of qualifying, Hasse, and it's going a little too quickly. I hope the race drags on a little bit because I really do enjoy commentating on these.
Yeah, it's absolutely flown by these 20-30 minutes of qualifying that we've had here. Of course, 45 minutes all in all, but speaking from when we go live, and it's very much towards the pointy end of this session now, so if anyone wants anything to be said there, it's got to be now. Absolutely last chance for the drivers that are on a flying lap.
Yeah, a couple of guys still struggling to get any extra time on. We'll keep looking at Roman Rusinov. He is on what is a flying lap, using everything he can of the track. Just managing to weave it in between the curbs and not to touch the lethal AstroTurf just beyond. Working his way through one of the chicanes, driving as hard as he can towards Campus and Stavlo before he's got to really sort of be brave going through Blanchemont. You did mention that it's almost flat, but you've got to be sort of careful that you don't get a little too overconfident, because after all of the tarmac runoff you're going straight onto grass, and the only way you can go there is straight towards the bus stop. So you've got to make sure you limit your aggression going into the bus stop. But he's definitely going full send through here at the moment. There's Blanchemont, keeping it nice and tucked up towards the curb. Doesn't use all the exit curb, probably just playing it a little bit safe, going in towards the bus stop, hard on the brakes, getting it slowed down. Churning down the gears, getting his head in the game, round the final corner, heading towards the line, crosses the line now. Let's see what he did. Did he manage to go any quicker this time? He did not. So he has crossed the line for the final time in the session. Here is Martin van Rijbeek in the Team Simpact car, once again going through the bus stop. This is his 11th rotation of the circuit, going straight into the pits, deciding it is the best or the last lap of his session. A little pit limiter practice. We'll go back to Steve Clays. He has decided that's the end of his session. And Pimbo going through the final stages of the circuit. Pardon me, no, it's not. He is going through Brussels, the hairpin just after the Lecom S's and the Lecom section, going back down the hill. And seeing what he can do with the machinery underneath him, Hasse.
Oh, and just as you say that, as he's coming into Pouhon, he gets a big slide on his rear. He manages to keep it, but I am afraid it's going to compromise his lap big time there. Pimbao, I think he is about the only car that's still running at this point. The 911 Cup Car, and the glorious scream here, heading in towards the final sector. And this is the 911 machine, the G-Drive car that we saw in practice actually being very, very competitive indeed. And there it is. So he didn't even get to finish the lap. And that means that in just about a short moment's worth of time, we should have the grid on display for you. There it is, actually quite quickly. Scott D. Andrews in front of Jürgen Frank of Sim RC. Then it's Martin van Loosenhout, Niklas Last, Roman Vucetov, and Matthew Crisp for Fiercely Forwards. Tom Emson for YB Sports, Jordan McGlone and Martin van Røvik, both from Team Simpact Racing. Matthias Tim in 10th from Fury Sim Sports there. And Austin Gretorix, what a great name, from Rides Racing indeed there. In 11th place, Ewan Marshall, 12th for Meraki in the GTs. And let's then switch a page
Trying
indeed.
to get it to go down. Oh no, I'm pressing the wrong thing. That'll be white.
Well, there it is. Ryan Oliver, Carl Sharkey for Strasse Motorsport in 14th. And some reason it's put Ian in 16th. Ian Hannon 15th. Jerome Queekle is actually in a cup car as far as I understand. So I think Jerome Queekle is going to be the pole-sitting cup machine in front of Josh Mellon, Jordan Weeks, Steve Clays, and Josh Cam for PorscheSport. Vince Peters and Pim Bao in what is overall 24th position. Then it's Justin Rem, Tom Metherell, Ruben van Buell for the Buell Brothers. Nice team name there as well. Lewis Ward, a familiar face from the TCR series as well here with another one of those from Iraqi Racing, Gregory Franks, Hugo Shrouet, Chris Walsh, and Josh Clark in that very, very lovely... that's the orange and black Porsche Cup car, indeed. Yes, it is. And Jochen Lennartz in the... Dynamics Simulators machine. And then for the GT4s, it is indeed Maxim Ramstein, Chris Moretta, In third there, of course, they're separated by William Chadwick. It's Ben Sharp, Daniel Perry, Edward Rabrager for Fury Sim Sports as well. Another Meraki car there with Andrew Hobley. Paul Cook in another one of the Fury Sim Sports machines. We do see quite a lot of these team names go again here and again and again. It's Jeff P. Lewis in 42nd for Ascari. And with that, I think we have the cars rolling on to the formation lap here.
Yeah, thank you very much for running us through the grid, Hasse. And it's not exactly a short grid here. You've got plenty of drivers to work through. You did say your own Queekle is in a 911. He is indeed. I'll make sure I get that changed. But we'll go back up to the front end of the field. 3 G-Drive cars all in a line. And we mentioned it at the start of the stream. You've got to go 2 by 2 through the bus stop before you can start racing. So Scott Andrews controlling the pace as soon as he gets out of the bus stop, followed by 2 of his G-Drive teammates. He's got Jürgen Frank on the inside in the Sim RC car. And that going through the chicane. The PorscheSport 2 hours of Spa is when Scott decides to put his foot through the floor. Goes green here at Spa-Francorchamps. Scott Andrews leading the way in the Porsche GTE 911 RSR, pardon me. Going through La Source. Still managing to keep the lead, but that's Martin van Leesnol throwing up the inside of Jürgen Frank. So it's now a G-Drive Racing Exemia P1, P2. We had an issue for you and Marshall, I think, dropping down the order. Pardon me, it was Roman Rusinov in one of the G-Drive cars, just managing to get caught out going through La Source, and we're going to have to go all the way back to the start. Once again, Josh Malin still leading the way in a G-Drive car. We had Jordan Weeks going sideways through La Source in his HM engineering machine.
And I'm afraid we've had a big wreck up in front there. Jürgen Frank from second place. That's one of the Sim Pack machines. That's Jordan McGlone in the pits as well. And with that, the start of the GT4 class as well here, as Maxim Ramstein leads them away. That looked like a chaotic scene as well on the Camel Straight. Perhaps we can have another look at that, Jack.
Yeah, I'm just doing my best to try and find what happened at the start. Can't quite see it on the event viewer. We'll have a look back a little further on, but we've still got Scott Andrews leading the way. He's already built up quite a nice gap of almost 9 tenths. No, about 9 tenths now, almost building his way up to a full second over his G-Drive teammate Martin van Leesnol behind, and he's built up a nice gap to Matthew Crisp, who has fought his way right the way up from P6 all the way up to P3. So a great drive from him. Matthias Temi, now in a Fury Sim Sport car, I've managed to get that fixed, is now P4 after picking up 6 positions. Roman Rusinov has lost 2 positions from where he started, so he'll be trying to make amends for that in the opening stages of the race. Nicholas Last is almost in last in class, P12 at the moment of P13. Your own Queekle, actually no, he is in class. Obviously I do need to change that for your own Queekle. We had another incident. That was Ian Hannon, who was backwards coming out of Stavlo. So we'll get a replay of that just to see what happened. So coming out of Stavlo, let's see what he did. He didn't use too much curb, kept it nice and clean through there. Did he use too much curb on the inside? The car was going and gone. Just manages to keep it out of the barrier. Locks everything up. Great job by him. We'll go back live with him just to see how he's getting on. Heading in towards the bus stop. But already, Hasse, we've completed 1 full rotation of the Spa circuit.
Yeah, indeed, and with quite a bit of drama as well. They're a bit more than perhaps we would have liked to see. Andrews leading Lucenord, Crisp, Tem, Emson, Marshall, Rusinov, and Gretorix at the moment. Then Carl Sharkey in 9th. And I think, though, the other classes got through that first lap a little bit more safely. It seems to me, at least, that the Cup cars haven't had any major incidents, and it seems as well that the GT4s did exactly the same thing. So that's good to see. And there's a bit of action there, a couple of positions down as well, coming in to Lecombe. Through that chicane in the next corner will be Malmedy for them. There's the battle between Emson, Tem, and Marshall, if I'm not completely mistaken, there for 4th, 5th, and 6th in the GT class. They look to be quite close. Indeed, there it is. So Matthias Tem for Fury Sim Sport, and he's knocking on the door of Tom Emson's RSR machine there as they head down towards Buchholm, one of the very, very tough spots on the track to get right. Because if you get that little bit too far wide, that well, I was about to say the teal AstroTurf there is quite slippery indeed. The green AstroTurf even slipperier, and you really want to take a lot of care coming through those corners. That has that on the outside here. And then down towards the Stavelo complex, of course, hugely important with the long, long run down the Paul Frère Straight. And that, of course, in turn leads into Blanchemont and the bus stop. And I think with the toe here and a good run, Matthias Thiem could be up for something. But he needs to time it right. He needs to time it perfectly, actually. As Emson is looking to cut across, perhaps. No, that's actually gentlemanly defending. He does not get a good run, though, into the bus stop. And I think that's going to compromise him here. As Matthias Thiem gets a good run this time around. He's shown the outside down towards La Source. In behind, it's Marshall, Rusinov, and Greatorex. And what happened to Martin van Rooijwijk as well? I think that's a good question because he's nowhere to be seen.
Just found a couple of incidents. This is Jürgen Frank at the start of the race going over Radion onto the Camel Straight. Is this where he got caught out? A couple of drivers sandwiched him. That was a massive hit. That was a car disappeared over the catch fencing, and I think Jürgen Frank got hit. Nicholas Last, I think, was also in that incident. We'll have a look here as well. We'll ride on board with Nicholas just to see what he saw. Managed to get collected, and that's him straight into the wall. I can't find the other driver. I think that was Raywick. We'll go back and watch forward from Raywick's point of view. See Murray Walker in the top right corner of the sun strip. Is this the driver that got pinged? No, it was one of the Simpax cars.
The other one was McClone, indeed, yeah.
It was McClone that went on to the, literally over the barriers here. This is Raywick once again. We are back live with him. He's got it back going again, but he's right the way down in P41, chasing Jordan McClone. Here he is. And Jordan is quite a stretch up the circuit, but he's managed to recover quite well. I'm guessing that is the joys of a fast repair, but he's got it back going again. He's got a nice fresh car, and he's pushing as hard as he can. We've got a couple of cars at the bottom, apparently, out of the race. Calvin Greatorex, you'll just have to ignore Seb Herbert and Ian Reitz. They are our race directors for today, so a massive thank you to those. But apparently Calvin Greatorex and Jürgen Franks have already decided that is the end of their day. But back up to the front, we've got Martin van Loosnoord. His previous lap was a purple lap. He lapped almost a full 10th quicker than Scott Andrews, his G-Drive Racing Eximia teammate. Let me see if I can get the camera on him. There we go. Martin van Loosnoord with a 2 minute 15.19. Obviously, the cars are about 3-4 seconds slower with the race spec of the fuel, and I'm sure they're running a different setup, probably a slightly tighter setup. But Martin, in this stage of the race, would you say it's worth battling with your teammate, or would you just want to stick behind him, work together, and see if you can build that gap away from Matthew Chris behind?
Well, that really depends. It could be they have a lot of internal competition going on. You never really know. In that case, I'd be getting busy, getting in there and having a good battle. But no, in all seriousness, I think they are gonna hold back with the battling. They know they have the pace at the front of affairs, and there really isn't any reason to go all out so early in the stint here. It's very much also a good plan to try and conserve the tires as best as possible, because that's certainly going to gain a lot of time there at the end of the stint. But they have broken a nice gap down to Matthew Crisp, fiercely forward there in third at the moment, and then another gap as well down to the next car, if you will, because it's about 4 seconds, I think, down to Matthias Thiem, and Ewan Marshall and Roman Rusinov. And here's Jeroen Kweekel, and that was the leading Cup car, actually. Josh Malin, was that Josh Malin getting past?
Yeah,
that
Josh
very
Malin
much was.
Inside at La Source, just got past Jeroen Kweekel. Well, I have eventually managed to change the colour of his name. But Jeroen Kweekel losing out to Josh Malin at La Source. It was very late on the brakes and got it up the inside and got the better run of the two, heading up towards Rouge and Radion. He managed to secure the positioning. He's got a bit of GT traffic between them now, but Josh isn't being affected by this. He's just taking this opportunity to build the gap. 6/10 between the top two now, almost 7/10. He's quickly building up to a second. So Jeroen really losing out, but Josh had to let the traffic by going into Brussels, and he started to fall a little bit back towards Jeroen, but Jeroen has got the attentions of Jordan Weeks in the HM Engineering machine, but Jordan Weeks is the meat in what is a G-Drive Racing Exemia sandwich. So he's got Steve Place just behind as well. So these two, I'm guessing they're trying to work together at this point. Steve will be trying to pressure Jordan Weeks into making a mistake, while also distracting him from his G-Drive teammate, Jeroen Weekle, ahead, and Jeroen doing everything he can to once again take top honours in the GT3 Cup class. But Scott Andrews on the lap prior posted a purple lap. Well, I say that as Martin van Leeuwenhoek has decided to post an even quicker time, a 2-minute 14.57, almost 2.5 tenths quicker than his teammate on the lap prior. 3 tenths separating them, and they've built up a nice 3.6 second gap to Matthew Crisp behind. And Matthew is almost in a world of his own at this point, because he's got 5 seconds behind to Matthias Tent. Well, it says that on the... Oh, no, that's just some lap traffic, isn't it? That's one of these Simpax cars doing everything they can to work their way back up. That will probably be Martin van Reewijk. There he is, just sitting on the back of Matthew Crisp, seeing if he can get his way back into the running. Obviously, we've still got a pit stop to go, so I know it's fairly early on, but Martin might have started to think about what he can do with strategy, because obviously a first lap pit stop is not what you want. So he will have to maybe adjust his strategy to see what he can do to make amends for the earlier incident.
Yeah, if there's anything really to be done, except for just hoping that he can pick off whoever has more incidents than him later on in the race. I think it is going to be difficult when it's that early in the stint, because there really isn't any time to do much about it when it's that much of a stint. You have to claw back in terms of time here with the 33 machine, or it's the 29 machine, of course, in 33rd position overall. Fury Simsport, Edward Rabrager, and he's battling... I think that's indeed Andrew Hobley in the Meraki car behind. And that is actually looking promising for Hobley. What a nice picture there. It's nice to see some positivity here as they're coming into to Blanchemont. He's building the run here. He could be looking at it. Actually, he very much is. And now it's a contest of who can hit that brake pedal the latest without being, of course, very much too late on the brakes, as they come into the bus stop to begin another lap of this wondrous and also, I want to say, mystical circuit almost, especially when considering the old layout of Spa-Francorchamps, which goes back to a time where motor racing, where Grand Prix racing was something a little bit different than it is nowadays. And these 2 hours here at Spa, the PorscheSport Spa 2 hours, very much a celebration of Weissach-made fine German precision engineering. And I think we're going to see just what these machines are capable of here tonight in terms of racing, with Andrew Hobley just, I think, too far back that he's going to be able to really make moves on Rabrager in front there. And that's, of course, into the comp. And then Malmedy, the right-hander here. And often if you can set it up here down towards Brussels, it's a good place to get it on as well here, as Hobley goes a little bit wide there. In behind, I think... oh, that's Jeff P. Lewis in the Ascari Autosport machine that's really knocking on the rear end of Chris Moretta in front. Through No Name they go. And a shame for Lewis that it's a hard part of the track to overtake upon here. They're now going to be caught by the leading GTE machines of... well, that's the 2 G-Drive cars of Andrews and Lucenort. So just how they're going to deal with that... Well, I think they're going to fly straight up the inside. Oh, and that almost gets very dicey indeed. And a moment of holding my breath there, because that could have taken out a number of leading GT cars there. That almost got spicy indeed.
Yeah, very close between all those guys. Sorry about that, Hasse. We just had Ollie Slade in chat say that Matthew Crisp is posting some absolutely amazing times, and he definitely is. Look how close he's got onto the tail of these G-Drive cars. He was about 3 seconds back not 2 laps ago, and he's now within 1.5 seconds of Martin van Leeuwenhoek ahead. So he's definitely making the most of traffic, slowing the top 3 down, not to take away from it. Oh, he's already having a great drive, and I don't think the traffic is that willing to let him by, making him go the long way around. But Matthew Crisp driving forward. And on the lap prior, we had Nicholas Last for the Sim Racing Academy Red car. He posted a 2 minutes 14.32, so almost 2/10 quicker than the top 3. So he's definitely on a charge, doing everything he can not to be last. Is Nicholas Last, but he's started to ease it back on this lap. So he's gone as fast as he can, and he's gone right. Yep, I've done that now, and he's just dropping back now and just making sure he can nurse the car around for the next 1 hour and 45 minutes. But we'll go back to a GT3 battle. This is Vince Peters doing everything he can to get past Hugo Drouet, and Hugo is trying to get past Tom Metherell ahead. But obviously, if these three keep battling, Chris Walsh is just behind in the Sole Performance Racing GT3 Cup car. So he's really sort of in a decisive moment. I say that Tom Metherell is also trying to get past another fiercely forward car of Josh Clogg. So he will look back from Josh Clogg. You can see, well, it only looks like one GT3 Cup car. That's how close everybody is. You can see the train of them coming into the bus stop. Everybody hard on the brakes, almost 2 by 2. That's Tom Metherell coming under pressure from Vince Peters in the SRO Racing Forces car. Tom just managing to keep the position. That was Josh Clogg going very slowly out of the bus stop. He went very far over to the outside, or what will be the outside of La Source, and I think he's letting Tom Metherell through. Whether that's it of his own choice as well, and it looks like Vince Peters is trying to make the most of it as well, seeing what he can do to get up the inside of Josh Clogg. You don't want to go 2 by 2. Oh, Rouge and Radion. It looks like Josh has just got the momentum to stay in front. He does indeed. Obviously, he does have the draft assistance from Tom Metherell now. But Tom is leading the way. He's punching the hole in the air for everybody else. All 4 cars behind him trying to get past. But Vince Peters isn't content with just staying behind. He has got a little bit of front left damage, but it doesn't seem to be affecting him in massive amounts. Got right under the rear wing of Josh Clogg. Throws it up the inside going into Les Combes. So a great move from Vince Peters, but he nearly loses it on the exit. And he's almost going to lose out to 2 fiercely forward cars there. Just manages to drop back and slot in between them. Intense pressure now from Hugo Drouet behind. This is an absolutely amazing battle and great driving from everybody. And Vince Peters, I don't know how he kept that point in the right way, but that is definitely impressive, Hasse.
Very much so, and the battling here is very intense, I have to say. This early in the race, with 5 cars within what is effectively about 2 seconds. We're looking at not a lot of space for these 3 machines, and it is the 2 fiercely forward cars that is rounding the car of Vince Peters there for SROC Racing Forces. It's a bit of a sandwich at the moment, but he's really trying to get past. And what amazing racing here, so early days. Just over 15 minutes of racing done. By this point, we'd expect the tires to have collected enough heat to really be at working temperature, and I think that's also what might be now falling into place for Matthew Crisp in 3rd in the GTs, because he might have had a setup on the car that was maybe a little bit more sketchy on the colder tires and picking up speed as the car settles in. And of course, he could also just be a missile through the traffic. Hard to say, as Vince Peters makes it through. Brilliant move in there. That was a gutsy one. Perhaps we should have another look, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. I'll do what I can to try and find that on the event viewer. You've got to be very brave to go around the outside there. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. We'll ride on board with Vince Peters as soon as we get the replay up. It's not wanting to play ball. Here we go. There it is. Right, let's have a look. We'll ride on board with him just to see how he managed it. He was already alongside Josh Clogg going into Blanchemont. Just managed to carry the momentum around the outside, and you don't really see much action from this camera angle, but he's done a great job. Takes the apex and secures the position, and then going into the bus stop, we'll see him nice and late onto the brakes just to get it slowed down. Here he is, getting it slowed down, secured the position from here, and now he's going to set his sights on Tom Metherell. We'll go back live with this battle just to see how they're doing. Here they are going down the Camel straight in towards Les Combes, and he's already built up quite a nice gap to Josh Clogg. Josh Clogg has got the attentions of Hugo Drouet behind, his fiercely forward teammate, going into the 2nd sector of the circuit. And obviously, if these 2 teammates have got the right head on them, they'll just try and work together and pull away from Justin Rømer and Chris Walsh behind. But at this stage in the race, team orders probably aren't at the top of the list. Obviously, they are racing for the same team, but you also want to have a bit of a play around. And I'm guessing they're going to use their excuse the cars were 2 different colours, so we can battle. But I don't think that's going through the head quite as yet. We've only just gone past the 18-minute mark, so still plenty of racing to go, and nobody's positions decided at all. We'll go back towards the top end of the field, where Scott Andrews is now coming under pressure from Martin van Loosnord, going into the going into Les Carmes, hard on the brakes. They will go there. They are at the braking zone. Scott Andrews just managing to keep the position from his G-Drive Racing Exemia teammate, but Martin, with that draft assistance, sets a purple sector 1. Only took him 38 seconds to go from the start line to Les Carmes, so a great job from him. But I don't think team orders are taking any plays at this point. Scott Andrews sort of coming under a little more pressure than he was expecting from his teammate. We'll go back a little further, almost right to the bottom of the GTE field. This is Ian Hannon. Almost getting caught out by a spiraling Meraki car. I'll try and find out who that was. That was Andrew Hopley going into the wall at the top of Radion, pardon me. We'll look at how that incident occurred. Going up through, was he helped by some GTE traffic? Is there a slight tap there? He didn't see the traffic on the outside. That was who was that? That was Nicholas Last in the Sim Racing Academy car, and that is a massive hit for Andrew Hopley. I think he's got it back going, or is he just pulling it out of the way? He's trying to get it turned around. We'll go back live with him just to see how he's doing, and he is still got it going, although it is looking rather second-hand. He's letting by, who was that? That was Sene Hulsmans in the No Fear Energy racing car, but that's a horrible start for Andrew Hopley. We'll go back to the battle which inevitably caused that. Nicholas Last, here he is. He's got a slight bit of right rear quarter damage, but it doesn't seem to affect him that much. Still carving his way through GT4 traffic, but although a little cleanly, and I'm sure he's trying to do it with a little more caution this time, although it wasn't directly his fault. But he's already built up quite a nice gap to Ian Hannon. He's really dropped back now, Ian popping in and out with the very unique livery. You don't really see that many race cars with flames up the inside, and if you do, they don't tend to be moving. They tend to be pulled over to the side of the road with receiving the attentions from the marshals. But it doesn't seem to be helping him to massive extents now. Obviously, he does have the nice chrome wheels on them, but it's all well and good having a nice livery, but you've just got to show it off as much as you can, and Ian struggling to do that. He's P12 at the moment, P12 in class. You'll see him on the timing tower. That doesn't mean he is last in class. Still 16 drivers in the GTE field. I think actually Jürgen Frank is the last runner. Has he got back going again? It doesn't look like he has. So Martin van Rooijk in the Team Simpact car, when we can get a camera angle, there we go. He is the last runner in the GTE field. So only 14 runners remaining of the GTE class. He's lost 21 positions from the start, obviously getting caught up in that earlier incident where he got sent to space. But it doesn't seem to affect him now. He's doing everything he can to work his way past all the traffic. He's managed to stay in front of all the GT4 traffic, so a good job from him so far. Just trying to get his head down, and still with 1 hour and 40 minutes to go, he's got plenty of time to make up the positions. The next car that will receive his attentions in terms of a proper in-class position change will be this man, Jordan McLean, almost halfway around the circuit ahead. This is his teammate, obviously. We've had an issue for Lewis Ward. So let's have a look to see what happened. We were just talking about teammates, and it seems like the Meraki cars are struggling to keep it pointing the right way. Coming out of the bus stop, does he use too much curb? He doesn't use any curb at all. Just over-rotates it on the exit. He does indeed. Does he keep it out the wall? No, that's a massive hit. Lewis Ward taking it straight back to the pits. We'll go live with him just to see what he's doing. Is he in the pits? It's not letting me find a camera angle on him, so can't decide what happened there. So Lewis Ward out of the race. That was a massive hit from him. But we'll go back to another GT3 battle. This is Josh Clogg now trying to shake off the attention to Chris Walsh. Chris Walsh, jeez, that's a mouthful when you're trying to say it quickly. But Josh Clogg still leading the way of the two, going over Eau Rouge and Radion and going on to the Camel Straight, Hasse.
Yeah, indeed. And Clash is going to be mindful of his inside coming into to the comp yet again here, as we've seen so many times before. That is one of the best overtaking zones here at Spa. This long middle section, it's difficult really to get the run anywhere in, and then of course a couple of very good opportunities around the start-finish straight as well. Now here 23 minutes into the race. At this point we are about a third of the way through towards the opening of the pit stop window, and I would expect drivers to be getting within the scope of the rhythms now, of the grooves, so to say. But Josh Clogg here not really able to break away from Walsh in behind. The 104 car there is firmly glued to the rear end as they come through Pouhon. And it's of course Hugo Chouet up in front. And this is the battle for what is effectively around 10th position in the Cup cars. In the lead in the Cup class is still Josh Malin, yeah indeed, in front of Jeroen Quiekel, Steve Claes, Josh Cam, Jordan Weeks, Rob Thiessen, then Gregory Franks, Ruben van Buell, Tom Matherell, Vince Peters, and then Hugo Schruer, Jess Clark, Chris Walsh, and Justin Ream at the moment. And then the two SimCat cars pretty far down the order there. It's a sad sight to see these beautiful machines running where they are at the moment. But I guess bad luck befalls anyone, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. We've just had, speaking of bad luck, I was just looking through the chat. Andrew Hopley, he did see the traffic at the top of Radion, but the car got light and it is impossible to turn more left at the top. And clearly the stewards have been looking at this, and Ian Roots has said the number 64 car, so this man here, Nicholas Last, will be serving a drive-through penalty for the incident at the top of Eau Rouge and Radion. So not getting away with it there, Nicholas. I'm sure he won't be best pleased with that, but obviously you've got to make sure, even though you are the quicker class, you've got to be patient and make sure you give all the room the GT4 and GT3 cars deserve. Speaking of GTE cars, actually, Martin van der Loosnord has posted another fastest lap of the race, a 2-minute 14.30, still trapped behind his teammate. He's seeing what he can do to get let loose, and obviously this will be helped via the draft. But at this stage in the race, they just seem to be working together. I think Martin is just piggybacking off Scott at the moment, letting Scott punch the hole in the air, use up all his fuel, and make sure Martin can save a little bit. But obviously, sitting behind one of these Porsche cars, it can't exactly be a cool place to be.
Well, I think
obviously, you've got the amazing sound. I say that, but Martin has decided to go around the outside of him, going into Le Camp, and has taken the lead of the GTE class.
So as Murray Walker once says, we make prophecies that most of the time turn out to be wrong. And Martin van Loosnord gets the better of Scott DeAndrews. G-Drive makes a switch at the head of affairs. Now we've seen a bit of messaging in chat about the G-Drive cars maybe switching about to share fuel duties at the head. As you just mentioned before, Jack, the job of punching a hole in the sky for in the air. Let's just go with the air. It should be enough for him. For the car behind to follow in, and that is something that really you could see a massive advantage if you keep one car behind. It's able to lift off. So that in iRacing, it seems like the amount of fuel that can be saved from short shifting isn't really that noteworthy. However, lifting off is the big fuel saver in iRacing. So if you're able to lift on the straights because you're basically coasting for the final, say, 200-300 meters of every straight because you're just in behind another car, you're going to be saving a lot of fuel there. Martin van Loosnord, the committed line, I want to call it that, through Blanchimont that time around. And the bus stop it is. Let's see this lap time. What's it going to be? He was swift last time out. He's lost a little bit, but Scott Andrews, this time around, a 2:15.6. Well, that's not going to be aiding. But I say that it's pretty much identical to Matthew Crisp, who seems to have lost a bit of time there after they cleared the traffic. He was very quick through there the first time. He closed that gap up considerably. He's lost a little bit of time yet again, but the gap, however, should notice they're behind Matthew Crisp, down to Matthias Tem in fourth at the moment. 15, almost 16 seconds. That's pretty massive, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. The gap has been opening up. Speaking of the G-Drive cars, there was an issue for Roman Rusinov going through the back half of the circuit. We've seen an issue here before, going through the Stavlo section. He over-rotates it on the entry. Does it get his slowed down before the wall? He does indeed, but he is on the racing line. So let's see which way he goes. Wait for the gap. That's another incident. I think that was possibly Ryan Oliver. Let's have a look. It was indeed Ryan Oliver in the GTE car, avoiding the unsighted G-Drive car going straight into the wall and also picking up, I think that was Tom Emerson, it wasn't. I can't quite put my finger on who that was that he managed to collect, but he picked up damage and affected a GT3 car's race, but he's brought it into the pits, so the Fury SimSport machine doesn't look like it's going anywhere fast, but we'll have to see where that leads. Martin van Loosenholt still leading the way from Scott Andrews, and Matthew Crisp just behind. There's the gap between those two guys, or those three. Fury SimSport for Matthias Temp, going through the second of the chicanes, powering towards the Stavlo section of the circuit. So the top 5 have separated to quite the margin at the moment, Hasse, but there's definitely no respite for another fiercely forward driver. Josh Clark has decided to throw it up the inside of who was it? That was Justin Reim in the that was in the Soul Performance Racing machine. That was it was in the, it says Stream Racing channel. I think it might mean Sim Racing channel. But Justin Ream doing everything he can to make sure Josh Clark doesn't get by, but Josh threw it up the inside at the bus stop. Couldn't quite get the run out of the bus stop onto the start-finish straight. Obviously affected by some GTE traffic. And speaking of GTE traffic, you can see his teammate, Matthew Crisp, just behind.
Yeah, indeed. And we also had one of the Cup cars pitting in at this point, so I'm interested to see whether that was because of any sort of damage needing repairs, or whether it's a tactical decision maybe to go in while there's this amount of traffic. Could have been holding it up here is Martin van Loosenholt. I don't think he's going to be defending into Le Combe this time around, but they're certainly close to 2. And yet again, I think we're seeing the same scenario as before. It's Matthew Crisp really committed when it comes to the traffic, and he's absolutely slicing his way through. Look at the gap disappear up ahead. This is absolutely amazing stuff, and just goes to show just how important racecraft is as well here in these. You know what? That's what you need to do in these situations. Just if you see a gap, be a racing driver. Go for it.
It's definitely a saying that a lot of these drivers will be living by. I've just put the intervals between the drivers up on the right-hand side of the timing tower, so you can see the gaps between all of the drivers. Matthew Crisp, once again, late on the brakes, works his way past some traffic, and he's got almost, or just over 3 seconds to the leader, and just under 3 seconds to Scott Andrews ahead. So he's trying to work his way up to this pointy end of the field, but obviously we've seen the top 2 G-Drive cars work together, so I think that's what they've got in their head at the moment, just work together, carve their way through some traffic, but I think traffic is going to slow them down a little bit here. Just managing to throw his way up some Fury SimSport traffic was Scott Andrews. I think he went off track a slight bit there, hard on the brakes going into the bus stop, another bit of GT4 traffic to negotiate, but they both get through there though, managing to keep nose to tail quite well. Even though we're 30 minutes into the race already, that time has really flown by. We'll go back to actually a GT4 battle. We haven't seen much of the GT4s. I say we're going to go back to look at a GT4 battle, but there is very little going on back in that class. I think the closest battle is between Jeff P. Lewis. Here he is. You can see the gap to the GT4 behind. There's Jeff P. Lewis, and then if we go back to Edward Rappareger, there he is. So those two are the closest GT4. Well, I say they are the closest 2 GT4s. That's Jeff Lewis firing it into the barrier at the top of Radion. So we'll have to have a look back just to see what happened. I'll wind it back on replay so we can see quite how he managed to get himself in that situation. Carries lots of speed, loses it at the top of Radion, unsettles the car and bangs straight into the wall. We've seen that catch a couple of people out before, and it's just claimed another victim. We'll go back live with him just to see how he's getting on. Is he managing to drag it back to the pit lane? He is indeed, dropping down the order though now, all the way down in P33, which is P7 in class. So he's dropped back from what was P4 in class, now down into P7. I'm sure he'll pick up or lose a couple more positions after he's been into the pits and picked up his repairs. We've had a couple of issues for Jochen Lennert a little further back. We'll have a look just to see how he came to strife going into Le Combe and see what he does. Does he outbrake himself? Uses plenty of curb on the inside. It does look like a slight little lapse in concentration. Gets it slowed down, does a great job of getting out of the way just in time of all that traffic that was very committed going through Le Combe. Gets it pointed the right way again, and he has kept it on the track ever since. So just a little odd incident from him, and he's doing everything he can to stick with Josh Clark. Although it may not be full position, and Josh Clogg is just over a lap ahead now. As long as you can stick with the car that's in the same class, you should hopefully work your way up the order. You might even work a little bit together because Josh will know that Jochen isn't a threat at all, so he might just ease it off a bit and see what he can do to use Jochen to push him forward. But both of them keeping it on the road and pushing forward through all this GT4 traffic, Hasse.
Yeah, indeed. And just to go through the top 5 running orders of all the classes, we have Martin van Loosenholt leading Scott D. Andrews for G-Drive Racing, both of the drivers, then Matthew Crisp for Fiercely Forward in 3rd. We have Matthias Temmen, that's for Fury, if I'm not completely mistaken, in 4th place, and Austin Greatorik for Rights Racing in 5th at the moment, having flown under the radar but having kept it clean so far. And then for the Cup Cars, we have Josh Malin still leading for Vibe Esports after having taken the lead from Jeroen Kwiekel earlier on from G-Drive. And those two actually still, that's Kwiekel in behind, that very much is. Those two still close, and that is the lead battle we're watching in the Cup Cars at the moment. So good stuff here as well. We've got Steve Claes for G-Drive all over the place indeed. Dominant team display. But they're in 3rd as well with Steve Claes, Josh Cam for PorscheSport in 4th, and Jordan Weeks for HM Engineering in the 959 machine in 5th place indeed. And in the GT4s, as we mentioned before, it's not that close indeed, but it's Maxim Ramstein leading for HM. We've got William Chadwick in 2nd, then Ben Sharp for Fury Simsport, Edward Rabrege for Fury as well, and then Chris Moretta in the 888 Meraki racing car in 5th position. But good to see that we still have very close lead battles, not only in the GT class, but in the Cup car as well. And with over half an hour, as we're over 25% of the race distance gone here, I want to say that it's very promising in terms of the entertainment value for the rest of the race. That it's still as close as it is for our lead battles in the GTs and the Cup Cars, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. We're just looking at a battle not necessarily for the top end of the GT3 class. We're riding on board with Rob Thiessen, shortly followed by Gregory Franks in the Meraki Racing number 99 car. So Greg doing a great job of piloting that round here. Just a little too far back to think about making a move. I say that as he closes massively up on the brakes. He's got Matthew Crisp behind in the GTE Fiercely Forward car, so I'm sure they'll let those, or I'm sure they'll let him by it before the source. I say that, but Matthew has obviously got the extra downforce, so he will be a little slower on the brakes, but or a little slower on the straights, but he'll make it up on the brakes. There you go. You can see how strong the GTE brakes are, and obviously Rob has got to go the long way round and use all the track on the exit. So he had the compromise line, and Greg Franks isn't exactly that far behind. So over the next coming laps, I can see this evolve into quite a hefty little battle. We've had another incident.
Yeah, I was just about to say,
yeah.
Rabrege has gone off, and I'm afraid it's been a bad one for him here, getting passed by...
Oh, it's his teammate.
Oh, that's his own teammate indeed, and he comes across the track. Luckily, no one at that very moment coming by. A car doesn't seem to be in too bad of a state, and it all now depends on whether he got any fast repairs left or not. But for some reason, he's chosen to stay on track, and the car, well, seems to be tracking all right, even though it did take quite a bit of a hit there to the left-hand side of the car. So we'll have to watch with interest if he's able to bring it back around, or if he's able to slot back into the rhythm and actually just carry on, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure he will, but I'm sorry about that, but we missed it. Greg Franks has managed to work his way past Rob Thiessen. I'll bring up the replay for you now, just so we can see how he did it. Going down the camel straight, dicing left and right. He used as much of Matthew Crisp's draft as he could, dived through to Rob's draft, and he's got the preferred line on the inside, late on the brakes, gets the move done. We've had another issue for Jochen Lennart, so we'll have a look back at that in a minute. And Greg has done a great job and kept his car out in front, and he's already starting to pull a gap at the moment. He's got about a half a second back, is Rob, but Rob is trying to let Martin van Rooijek by, and it does say it is for position, and indeed it is, because Martin van Rooijek deciding that he didn't want to stay on the track, and he definitely didn't even want to stay in the infield. He decided he wanted to go into the air, but it's only made him faster because he's been carving his way up through the field. We saw him right the way down in P32, and he's now all the way back up into P18, just getting caught out by some GT4 traffic. He wanted to brake a lot later than that. Gets it slowed down in time though, working his way through the bus stop and chalking off another lap. We'll have a look back at that incident we mentioned with Jochen Leonard. So we'll see what happened. We've seen an incident for Jochen in this section of the circuit before. On the brakes, over-rotates the car, maybe uses a bit of grass, and that just loses all the rear grip, lights the rears up. So it doesn't exactly make it the most predictable car to do to see, but he gets it out of the way just in time before some GT4 traffic carved its way through. But Jochen back going once again, and it doesn't seem to have affected him much. That is probably one of the cleanest cars we've seen on the grid. It's running my favourite number 65. But it doesn't look like it's got much damage. He is having incidents, but nothing major. He's just spinning the car through 180 degrees and then getting it pointed in the right way again. So he's doing a great job. But we've still got battles going on. This is Hugo Schruwe now coming under pressure from Justin Rame in the Sim Racing Channel car. And these two have been getting ever closer, but Hugo is now coming under even more pressure from Justin. Justin diving up to the inside, late on the brakes. Does he get the move done? He does indeed, going into Lake Om. So a great job from Justin, now leading Hugo, but Hugo will have that draft. We've seen how powerful it is. And going into probably what is the slowest part of the circuit, these hairpins apart from the bus stop, he's going to be trying to stick on the coattails of Justin. 4/10 between these two guys now, so he's doing everything he can to pull away is Justin. I say that as he carries extra momentum through No Name and has pulled out the gap to just over 4/10 now. We will get rid of the gaps anymore. Now we don't exactly need them. But this isn't the only battle actually in the GT3 class. We've got Greg Franks still under pressure from Rob Thiessen. Obviously, we saw that overtake happen a little earlier on in the race, but he's still not managed to shake off the attention, and he's definitely still there, Hasse.
He certainly is, and Greg Franks, who had his birthday yesterday, mentioned here by Ian. So congrats to Mr. Franks here, and certainly putting in a good performance so far here today. Sitting in the, what is that, 6th position at the moment?
It is indeed.
And he's still under pressure there, as you mentioned before, from Thiessen in behind, but he's a good racer, Greg Franks. I've seen him already now at this young stage of my SRW career. I've been accustomed to his level of racecraft, and it is certainly up there, Greg Franks there. So good to see him being able to celebrate his birthday, as I think we've had another commentator's curse. That car must have made contact with the inside wall. That must have been Peters there and behind. And I think Roman Rusinov has had an incident as well, and that's a huge one.
Massive hit going through, sorry about that, massive hit going through Blanchimont. Over and over and over he went onto his roof. Major damage on that car, gets it pointed the right way after lighting up the red tires. Wouldn't be surprised if he dives into the pit lane this time. That is some major aero damage, and I'm sure there's some mechanical bits that have been mangled in that as well. Diving into the pits as expected is Roman Rusinov. I'm trying to figure out what that incident was in the background that we saw, but Roman now diving into the pits. So he was in P10 in class at the time. He's dropped down to P11. The next car that will take him is this man, Jordan McClone, in the Team Simpact car, and he's still got his teammate carving his way up the order, Martin van Rooijek. He is the quicker of the two at the moment. Still, well, they actually set identical fastest lap times so far. But Martin now in P17 overall, just working his way through the what isn't actually GT3 traffic. It's all of these moves he is making are for position. The next car he will get is this man here, Josh Cam. Still just catching on to the draft of Steve Clays, but Steve, the G-Drive driver, if you'll pardon the pun, is in P3 at the moment, so this will be a battle for the final spot on the podium. Jeroen Kweekel is the next of the GT3 cars. That's a lot of G-Drive cars all in one shot there.
Just my thoughts when you said it.
G-Drive GTE, followed by G-Drive GT3, and then followed by another G-Drive GTE. Jesus, try and say that 10 times fast. But So definitely a very G-Drive dominated event so far. We've got 2 G-Drive cars leading the way in the GTE class. We've got a G-Drive car P2 and P3 in the what was that, in the GT3 class, and we don't have any in the GT4 class. So pretty much whatever class they're in, G-Drive seems to be dominating the event. We've got Job van Outert now taking the reins in the number 26 GTE for G-Drive, so he is back out on track, and we are at that stage where we may start seeing a range in strategies. We did expect to see people dive into the pits around the halfway point, but evidently not. Job van Outer has got into the 26 car, and I'm assuming at this stage he might go to the end, but we're not even at the halfway point, so we might see him hand back over to his teammate. We've had an issue for Tom Empton and Hugo Schruwe. The incident might be related. We'll have a look just to see what happened.
I was just about to say, I think we've had an incident there because and that is not well timed indeed, as Tom Empson just touches the rear end of Hugo Schruwe's otherwise very pretty looking cup car, and incredibly so, I think Schruwe got away with that very well indeed. That was a light tap, if anything, and they seem more than able to just continue on, which is nice to see. We've had quite a bit of carnage here in the first 45 minutes of racing. We're on lap 20, that is, the leaders are on lap 20. I expect these drivers to be around a lap down by now. Actually, he isn't. Still on the lead lap, Hugo Schruwe here.
Yeah, he's doing a great job to keep on the lead lap. We've had Ian Roots, one of our race directors today, doing a great job in the booth, but we saw the incident between this man here, who ended up sadly taking out, it wasn't Job van Outer at the time. I can't put my finger on who it was that ended up going for a little roller coaster ride in that G-Drive car, but I'm assuming when he went into the pits, they decided, right, let's box this lap, get all of the repairs they need, fill the tank, and change drivers. So Job van Outer is now taking the reins for that, but it's under review at the moment. So the number 64 machine, this one here, the Sim Racing Academy Red Porsche 911 RSR in the hands of Nicholas Last, is once again under review. We've seen him have a drive-through penalty already in this race. We're only 45 minutes in, and he's definitely making a name for himself. Probably not the impression he wants, but he's already had incidents with various other cars and has paid the price for it, and he may end up paying the price again. He's been given another drive-through penalty, has Nicholas Last. So I'm sure we'll see him dive into the pits this time. He is definitely leading the way in terms of the amount of drive-throughs so far. He is P9 overall, and I'm guessing he's going to lose out to Ian Hannon behind. This man here in the GRC number 17 Porsche 911 RSR. Here he is going through Blanchimont. Obviously, Nicholas Last just up the road. There he is diving into the pits, serving his penalty as he should do. Just getting it slowed down before the line. He might have left that a bit late, so he might have picked himself up another penalty, but we'll keep an eye on Ian Hannon. Here he is, driving as fast as he can past the pit lane. We might have to have a look, keep an eye on Nicholas Last. If he has got a teammate, we'll have to see whether they decide that now is the time to swap positions in the car. But the top two, both the G-Drive Racing Academy cars, are still separated by less than a second, Hasse.
Yeah, they are, and they've been moving along lap after lap after lap, and they aren't really pressing each other too hard. I feel like, I want to say, every time we've seen any sorts of looks, and the move that was made from Van Loosenhout at some point there early in the race on Andrews, it's all done in let's say under perfect control and very safe conditions indeed down the Camel Straight. No risks really taken, and you do get the sense that they are battling, although they're not going at it 100% at this point of the race. Of course, we are coming towards the final minutes of the first stint. We'd expect for most of the drivers, usually the GTE cars are even a full tank of fuel is going to be, well, just about an hour's time for those cars. They might need to save a little bit to make it past the hour. For the rest of the cars, that shouldn't be a problem, especially the GT4s. If I'm not completely mistaken, the GT4 cars actually had their fuel capacity slightly reduced in order to make them go a little less long into the race before having to pit. That's nice to see that we have a pit window that kind of fits for all the cars here. And this time, A small look there for Andrews, but it's not going to materialize into anything at all there. The gap down to Matthew Crisp is now 10.2 seconds, and further down, Matthias Tem is 35 seconds down on the race leader. So, as you mentioned earlier, Jack, it is really beginning to spread out in the GT class at the head of affairs there. Still looking very good in the and at the head of the Cup Car class is indeed Josh Malin, and still with the G-Drive machine of Rømer Kvikkel right on the tail, and more G-Drive GT traffic to contend with here. That's Job van Uitert. He's been in after that rollabout, or was that the 25 machine? I'm slightly confused there because I think it was. Was it someone else? Was it? No, because that Andrew Hopley, he had another big one earlier. But it is what I think it was Job van Uitert who had that rollabout there earlier, and he's been in to take advantage of a fast repair, and he gets very close to the Cup Car up ahead. Oh my word! I think you could hardly have squeezed a broad-sided ruler in between the two cars there. They were so close indeed. And that's the class-leading car of Josh Malin indeed. Oh, and he gets very close to the Simpack machine as well. Through Stavelo 2, that almost got very dicey. I want to say that actually did get pretty dicey, but he's carrying on. You know, Kvikkel is certainly going to be looking to take advantage of that. That's going to be an incident point picked up there for Malin ahead. Oh, and of course, Job van Uitert is in the car now, having taken over from Roman Rusanov, who rolled the car. So that's the cause of confusion there, of course. PorscheSport, thanks in chat. And I hope you're enjoying the show out there. By the way, everyone looking along here as we're nearing the halfway marker of the race. We're 50 minutes into it by now. On lap 23 for the leading machines here.
Here are the top two. Martin van Loosnord still leading from Scott Andrews, his teammate. Matthew Crisp is about 8 seconds up the road. I have put the intervals up so you can see the various intervals, not from top to bottom of their class, but between the two cars that are in front and behind the specific car in question. So this is Matthew Crisp. He has got 9 seconds ahead of him and 26 seconds behind him, so he is in a pretty safe position at the moment, but I don't want to talk too soon. Anything can happen. Still over half the race to go. And he's still only 8 seconds behind the top two, but the top two are still working together and disappearing into the distance. So Matthew working solo, trying to make the most of what he can and squeeze every little bit of performance he can out of his 911 RSR GTE car to see what he can do about making inroads to the top two. But almost at the halfway point in the race, it doesn't look like we're going to be short of battles. We've still got this battle between Tom Thiessen and Vince Peters. Vince Peters only half a second behind. There is the gap between those two. We've also got, this is Nicholas Last now coming under pressure from Martin van Rijwijk. Obviously Martin on an absolutely amazing recovery drive. He is now P13 in class, and obviously that's P13 overall. And obviously, as soon as Martin gets past Nicholas Last, he's got a G-Drive machine, and with Job van Uitert, there is the gap. Just up the road is Job. And thank you very much for PorscheSport, obviously, for pointing out that Roman Rusanov did end up on his roof and decided, you know what, he doesn't trust himself anymore and just wants to hand over to Job van Uitert, making the most of the pit stop. So clever strategies from these guys, deciding what they're going to do. And Job, he's been given sort of the hard part of the race. He's got well over half the race still to do, and he's been given a car that has just sort of been in quite a violent accident, so he's got to make the most of what he can now, being given a fresh set of wheels. So he's just got past Nicholas Last. There he is, going into the bus stop. Martin van Rijwijk just behind as well, still doing what he can to stick behind Nicholas Last. Josh Malin has well and truly built out his gap. Well, I say that, I was getting confused with the car ahead. 1 second between Josh Malin and Rømer Kvikkel. Well, I say it's dropped down even more now. Rømer Kvikkel getting the better of the both. both the cars there. Your own only half a second between them now, and obviously he's got the draft assistance going into Eau Rouge, then over the top of Radion onto the Kemmel Straight. Let's see what he can do about that half a second gap. He's still falling down. You can see the delta on the battle box dropping very, very quickly. He's just over half a second. As I say that as he's just about to go into half a second. There he is, nowhere near close enough to think about making a manoeuvre. But I'm sure your own will start to eye up where Josh Malin ahead is slightly weaker. We've still got this battle between Vince Peters and Rob Thiessen getting ever closer, and I'll leave this one to you, Hasse.
Yeah, indeed, as they come up through Eau Rouge, Radillon onto the Kemmel Straight, Vince Peters, who has that biff on the left-hand front side of the car, might be suffering a bit on his top speed, should he have to do the job of breaking the air himself. Right now he's in a very good position there, and we're on board with Gregory Franks, and as the curse of the commentator goes, that's Rob Thiessen, and he is sent directly into the wall, and that is one big incident, and I'm quite sure that's going to be a investigation from the stewards there. Oh, and you can see Peters, he did everything in his power to try and stay clear. Just didn't manage to do so. That might have been a net coat. That rear end of the car looking very clean to me. But, oh yeah, that word we don't want to say, as Chess said last Tuesday. That was something that really made me laugh anyways here. Rob Thiessen picking up some proper bad luck there in the 911 G-Drive machine. Here's Ruben van Buell, and I'd be surprised if he isn't going to be able to just go straight on through. He's got Justin Rem, the Canadian, in right behind. And they are making contact, though. Oh, my word. Perhaps we should watch someone else, Jack, because we seem to be spreading the carnage about for these drivers at the moment. That was... that certainly wasn't what we want to see there. Ruben van Buell more than unlucky here, and Jerome Kweekel still on the tail of Josh Malin in front. It's still that second or so in between him, and just about far enough that while being in the slipstream, he isn't anywhere near close enough to really put any sort of real pressure onto Josh Malin's car there. Expect Malin to be able to keep his cool, even with a G-Drive car in his mirrors. You know, G-Drive being at the front of basically every class here. And this time around, they got traffic that could be a chance for your own to just carve out a bit of time there. That's the two Fury Sim Sports cars.
Oh, we'll just go back another couple of cars. We got Josh Camp now doing everything he can to work his way past Steve Clays. So the second, well, I say that Steve Clays rotates his car through 90 degrees. He's lost out also. What is the commentator's curse today? We're definitely catching a fair few people out. Jordan Weeks manages to pick up a position from that. So Steve Clays dropping down to P18, what is now P5 in class. He was P3 in class, so he was on for a podium at this point in the race, but he's now got Jordan Weeks up the road. The gap is almost 9 seconds between those now. Josh Cam also inherited a position from that, and Jeroen Kweekel has seen his teammate disappear out of his rearview mirror. So two incidents in the past 2 laps for 2 G-Drive cars, but we've had an incident for Daniel Perry a little further back. We'll have a look back to see what happened with him. Did he get caught out by Jeroen Kweekel? Oh, that was a hit from Jeroen Kweekel.
Huge hit on all
nearly. That was all 3 Fury Sim Sports cars in that picture. Daniel Berry did an absolutely amazing job, even though he probably wasn't in 100% control of his car. Just manages to keep it out the way of his 2 teammates. And we'll go back live with him just to see how he's getting on. We've had another incident for Daniel Perry. Let's have a look back to see what happened there. Going through Stavlo and then Stavlo 2.
That car does not look good to me.
It does. That's that damage.
I'm thinking the suspension must be broken already for the car to snap that way. And it did look very biffed. Oh, the traffic. But he keeps it mindful. And indeed, Jack, as you said before, we've had some. It's been a very chaotic couple of laps here. 2-3 laps of quite a bit of destruction, and you have a strong curse, Jack. I have to say, bestowed upon a number of drivers tonight.
I know.
It's been hefty. You really need to be mindful of who we watch and when we do it, because
I don't know how I manage it. I know Chaz, another commentator on the Sim Racers World TV channel, has a similar issue. Basically, he looks at somebody, looks away, and then they have an incident. But for me, as soon as I look at them, we tend to see them either on their roof, on their side, inside another car, or inside the wall. So, yeah, like you say, we've got to be very careful of who we look at and when we look at them. But this is Pim Bao in the number 911 car, taking over from his teammate. I can't remember who that was in that car.
And that's a 911 machine. That was yeah, that's a good question actually. That was
PorscheSport, come save us again.
Yeah.
Pim Bao, he's come out of the pits and he is caught onto the coattails of Chris Walsh. He's got two Americans in front of him. So Chris Walsh, the first of the two, the number 104 Soul Performance Racing machine, he's almost got a minute to make up to his fellow American Josh Clogg in the beautiful orange, white and black Fiercely Forward machine. Josh, we've seen him caught up in a couple of incidents, nothing major, just a few little mistakes and struggling to carve his way through traffic, but he's P10 in class at the moment. He's got his Fiercely Forward teammate 10 seconds up the road of Hugo Drouet in the predominantly yellow version of his livery, obviously with the chrome line on the side. And Hugo, P9 in class, doing everything he can to catch up to Justin Rame. We've seen these two have a good little battle before, but as soon as Justin got up the inside of Hugo going into Le Carme, it looks like he's made the move stick, got his head down and disappearing into the distance, but we've still got the battle between Steve Clays and Greg Franks. Pardon me, wrong way round. Greg Franks and Vince Peters, there we go. So Vince Peters still on the tail of Greg Franks. 3/10 separated between them. See what he does going into the bus stop late on the brakes. You see him closing up to a massive extent, doing everything he can to catch up to that Meraki car. There we go. That's Gregory Franks diving into the pit lane for what would be a scheduled pit stop at this part of the race. We've just ticked over the halfway mark. So 1 hour of the race gone, 1 hour of the race remaining. We've also got Justin Ream diving into the pits, shortly followed by a GT3 car. I think that's Ian Hannon, it is indeed, followed by Matthew Crisp. Well, Matthew Crisp is now leaving the pit lane. We missed him going into the pit lane, but he's now leaving. We've got Scott Andrews, our current leader, still followed by his teammate, setting a personal best and purple Sector 1, so he's definitely going for it.
Yeah, Andrews has taken over the lead from Losenort, because Losenort has been leading for some time now, and it's Scott Andrews back as they head through Blanchemont, so we've made a bit of a little switcheroo there. Interesting to see for how long they'll be running. I don't think they've been in yet, but we do have the pit round, the pit window open here. And for once, my prophecy turns out to be true. And got both G-Drive cars coming in here. I'd expect Austin to be pitting as well in the Wrights Racing 133 machine as well. And that is going to hand back third place to Matthew Crisp.
Yeah, so lots of chopping and changing. Now we've got into the pit window. We've just had another mention or another word in chat from Ian Roos saying car 55 and car 28 is under review after that previous incident, and car 55, let me see whether we can get it up on the stream, it's Jeroen Kweekel, after disposing of the Fury SimSport car, has got a drive-through penalty. So all that hard work he's been putting in over a stint, catching up to Jeroen Kweekel, is all going to come undone. He's going into the pits, nearly getting caught out by that was Josh Malin, being a little too overconfident on the way into the pits, but gets it where he needs to go, going into the pit lane, looking for his pit box. But obviously, Jeroen Kweekel, I don't know what the rules are at this stage in the race, but whether he can serve his drive-through penalty as part of a scheduled pit stop, I don't know. But this is the man that should inherit everything as long as he doesn't pit this time by. He does indeed. So we're at that point where the GT3 cars can't go any further on the full tank of fuel. We've still got our top three in. So Austin Greatorex dived into the pits on this lap. Matthew Crisp, there he is. Is he going into the pits? He is not, but we've got the top two now leaving the pits. So here is Scott Andrews, still ahead of his G-Drive teammate, Bram Van Putten. Basically left the pit lane at exactly the same time. There was only half a second between their respective pit times. So absolutely great strategy from both of the G-Drive cars. So definitely keeping in touch with each other. Matthew Crisp has now inherited P3. He has been into the pits, and he spent a little longer in the pits than he was expecting, over a second longer than the usual pit stop. So maybe a little bit of repair that he had to take. But he is now back up into P3. Austin Greatorex still in the pits. He's up on the jack, so he's taking tyres as well. Tom Emson inherits the position. You can see Matthias Temp passing the pit lane in the Fury SimSport machine also gets the position. The next person that would in theory take a position would be this man, Ewan Marshall. But Austin, he is 1 minute behind, so he is unlapping himself. So Austin Greatorex will now be leaving the pits. Actually, no, I've got it wrong. No, I did get it right. The timing software is just playing silly buggers. And Austin Greatorex does indeed stay in front of Ewan Marshall. Job van Outert, who was the first of the GTE scheduled pit stops. Actually, it wasn't scheduled, was it? He ended up on his roof.
Yeah, he had that big role indeed.
Yeah.
Took over the car from his teammate. And
yeah,
also,
I
think worth noting that Bram van Putten has taken over the car from Martin van Loosenhoort. So the 23 machine with a driver change, the 94 cars keeping Scott Andrews at the wheel for the final stint of this race here. 55 minutes of racing to go, and we have been served with some excellent racing to this point, Jack. It's really been a treat indeed.
Definitely. It's been battled pretty much everywhere we look. So thank you for pointing out that Bram van Putten has taken over. Carl Sharkey for the Strass Motorsport team is not wanting to give up the position to that's Ian Hannon, I believe. No, it's not. That is Nicholas Last. He's now in front of Carl Sharkey. So the Strasser racing machine does have a bit of rear left damage by the looks of it. We'll see it as soon as we get round this hairpin of Brussels. There is a little bit of damage. See one tail light a little higher than the other, so he's had a bit of a crumple with another car. We've seen he had an incident a little earlier on. We'll have a look back at that using all the entry road he can. Here is the incident going into the bus stop. Does he get collected by one of the G-Drive cars? I don't think he does. That's number 26.
Oh, very much does.
So that's, yeah, definitely does. Gets a big hit from behind.
And he almost cuts across on the GT4 that comes in from behind there. A little lucky not to make contact with one another there, but they just united in the 26 machine. Got involved with that one. Actually, impressive job to get that slight punt and just make the car pretty much point the right way that you're going down the straight. You would lose a little bit of time. It was all not fine and dandy there. This looks to be a little dicey to me as 3 classes are all in together here, coming into Blanchemont. And with Job van Noydert on the outside, he's not going to be able to go through, I think. Oh, and it's Josh Cam, of course, in the PorscheSport GT. This is a Cup Car, of course. I was about to say GTC, which we could call it as well. But to be fair and correct, it is a Cup Car. And well done, these guys in this situation to keep it fair and clean of one another there, because it's pretty congested here. As I think that's Cam making a bit of a mistake under braking, unless there might have been a small bit of contact there. I'm not actually sure, but need to just open the door for Jordan Weeks and go on past Jeroen Kweekel. The question is, did he actually serve that penalty?
He did indeed. I'm just looking now. His pit time was quite a long while. As far as I'm aware, he has served it, but he's went into the pits in P2 and has left the pits in P4. So it leads me to believe he did indeed. So he's lost 2 positions out of that. There is the gap between Jeroen Kweekel and Josh Cam ahead. So Jeroen will be trying to make amends for the incident with the GT4 car, doing everything he can to catch back up. We've got Jordan Weeks now just up the road in the HM Engineering number 959 machine. So he is piloting that round the beautiful Spa circuit. We've been here for over an hour and I still love the look of it. You just can't get bored of this place, can you, Hasse?
Not at all, and it is also very much one of my absolute favorite tracks, both to watch racing and to race myself. It has such a flow to it when you're driving. It feels very natural to drive, I think, and it's also as I mentioned upon earlier, it's one of those tracks that even in the modern layout still has this air of old school racing about it, which I really love indeed. Spa-Francorchamps, one of the very, very best motor racing circuits in the world, indeed. PorscheSport asking us to have a look at the GT4s. I think we can very much touch on the GT4s instead. It is still Maxim Ramstein for HM Engineering leading the class. And is that a battle for position between Jeff P. Lewis and Senne Hulsmans in the No Fear Energy Racing car? I think it is.
Yeah, it is indeed. They are battling for P6 in Class P31 overall. So Jeff P. Lewis for the Ascari Autosport team leading Senne Hulsmans just to the tune of about half a second, but going into the braking zone. We'll have to see what that develops into. Actually, Senne Hulsmans dropping quite a way back, almost back to a full second now. The gap has definitely increased going into the bus stop. Now 1.2 seconds, so Senne might have picked up a slight slowdown. He might have ran wide at Blanchimont, but he's starting to fall back quite a bit now. So I think we just missed out on Jeff Lewis. We have indeed getting the position on Senne Hulsmans. We'll see if we can get a replay of it. Here it is going up the inside. Where's that?
That's in Pouhon. That's at mid too wide through Pouhon. That's not usually a too wide corner, but they managed to do it. And then with a bit of G-drive traffic as well there to spicing things up. That lucky number 13 car of who's that? That's Steve Clash in the G-drive Cup car. Back with Senne Hulsmans here, who's now trying to claw back the time, but he is seeming to lose time on Jeff P. Lewis in the Ascari Autosport car ahead. And there is nothing wrong with that 911 RSR in behind, except for the fact that it is on fire. And it is the that's the 17 car, isn't it?
It is indeed. It's Ian Hannon for GRC, working his way through the traffic. He is P11 in class, P11 overall at the moment in the GTE class, and we are over 1 hour, or almost over 1 hour and 10 minutes into the race, and Scott Andrews has only just gone on to his 30th lap, so it really does pay credits to how long the Spa circuit is. That was somebody stopped in the track. That was a GT4 car.
I think that was Chris. Was that Chris Walsh?
Chris Walsh, it was indeed. We'll go back to see how he ended up in that predicament. Oh, it was a GT Cup car. Used plenty of curb going into Lake Combe, just a little too much. Does a great job of just getting it slowed down. Oh, kissed the wall a tiny bit. Reverses just outside of the racing line. That was very close. I think Chris Walsh is the one that me and Chaz mentioned at Silverstone, where I think he's actually in one of the bobsledding teams, I believe, for the USA. So he's definitely showing off how to slide a Porsche. Not quite the sliding he was expecting, but he's definitely doing it well. We've had an issue for Mike Barton. We haven't seen him in the car yet, I don't think. For some reason it says Benelux. I will try and get that changed. So it does say he is in the No Fear Racing Machine. Goes to the inside, and is that the end of his session? He's decided he's just going to pull over and stop the car. Where is he now? He is in the pit lane, so not 100% sure what happened with him, but we'll go back to what was a GT4 battle, but it definitely looks like it's evolved into nothing major. Here is Jeff P. Lewis. No, it isn't. There we go. There's Jeff P. Lewis. He's now 6.5 seconds up the road from Senne Hulsmans. There he is. So Senne really falling off the back of Jeff P. Lewis now. So Jeff well and truly in P6 in the GT4 class. We'll go back up to GT Cup class. We've got Jeroen Kweekel in between Josh Cam and Jordan Weeks. So Jeroen trying to work his way past Jordan Weeks in the HM Engineering Machine, but he's also got to keep one eye on the car ahead and one eye on the car behind. Josh Cam just behind. There's the gap. Nothing major between those two guys. Half a second in front is Jeroen Kweekel to Josh Cam. We'll ride on board with Josh just so we can see what it's like, and we'll leave you to enjoy the sound of these beautiful Porsche 911 GT Cup cars. Absolutely amazing sound. We know Porsche are very good at making cars sound good, and the GT3 Cup car is no amendment from that. They do absolutely sound amazing, although I've got to say I don't think they sound quite as good as these. We're looking at Martin van Reewijk now coming under pressure from Jordan McClone, his teammate. So both Simpax cars, nose to tail, going down the Camel Straight. I don't think team orders are going to take place here. Jordan McClone going to the inside up towards Lake Holm, seeing what he can do. Now he's pulled out of the draft. He should carry the momentum. He's got the position on the timing screens. It's just going to be last of the late breakers, I think, being teammates. Yes, they're just going to abide by the rules. Martin van der Rijwijk braking nice and early, letting his teammate by, but obviously he will now have the draft assisted position in behind Jordan McClone, his teammate. So I'm guessing this is once again a battle between two teammates. Talking of teammates, we've got Scott Andrews still leading his teammate Bram van Putten, 6 tenths between these two guys. So it looks like as soon as you get together with your teammate Hasse, you're pretty inseparable.
Yeah, it's been the look of things so far, indeed, for those who's been able to do so. But I want to see also just how it's going lower down the order for the GT cars. Indeed, we have Job van Uytert now in 8th place. It's Niklas not last in 9th at the moment. And then Carl Sharkey in the Strasse Motorsport car in 10th at the moment there. Certainly still looking good, looking clean, and going about on their business. They've been flying under the radar until now, I think. And mind you, that's actually a pretty good thing doing, because these races longer than an hour, it seems, and especially with this race being a multi-class race, the less attention you pick up also means that you haven't really had any incidents, and that's the way you want to go about your business. So good job there from Mr. Sharkey. We're watching 7th place car, the 133 car of Austin Greatorex. It's one of those names that I say and just hope that I get it right.
It sounds bang on to me, mate. I would say it's pretty similar, but you were just saying it for the Strasse racing machine, Strasse Motorsport machine, Carl Sharkey. You said he flew under the radar. I can show you someone that was on the radar. It was this one here. He was well and truly on the radar. He was in space. So he's done an absolutely amazing job to work his way back to P13. Both the Simpax cars have lost 4 positions from where they started, so they started alongside each other. And it seems like we did say that teammates are pretty inseparable, but they've definitely paid due to that, because since the start of the race, they have pretty much been together. You can see Josh Clogg in the background, seeing what he can do about disposing of some GT4 traffic. That beautiful livery, sadly at what was the bottom end of the GT Cup field. I say that, but I've just looked a little further back. We've still got Luke Thies in the Dynamics Simulators car. I think that has changed drivers, Hasse. I don't think I've seen his name on the timing screen before.
No, neither have I.
Ruben van Buell in the Buell brothers car. Well, I say that, but he's not showing up. So maybe Ruben van Buell has decided it's the end of his session. Barton as well. Paul Cook, where is he? There he is. So Paul Cook is the last of the current runners, Hasse.
It is, and good stuff from Paul still to be running there, the Fury Sim Sport car. Number 85, I was about to say 35, but it is, of course, the 85 machine. Can I just say that I'm gutted to see the Buell brothers no longer in the race. One of the great team names, I think. So familiar to the Blues Brothers, indeed. Great film. Oh, it's Luke Thies also there with a bit of a slide. Oh, so that's the 65 Tequila machine. And you mentioned that livery earlier, Jet. It is a crisp piece of work. And speaking of crisp, we've still got Matthew Crisp, 3rd in the GTs, doing a very good job for Fiercely Forward. And can I just get some can I get a bit of applause for that segue there? I think that was in all seriousness.
Played on that nicely, definitely.
In all seriousness there,
yeah, you're in Queekle, just behind Jordan Weeks, but I've got to say I don't think I'm going to match up with that. My best one I've had so far is a little dig at was it Jordan Last? I can't remember.
It was Nicholas Last.
Nicholas Last, that's the one. It's because I'm looking at Jordan Weeks just ahead. There he is. Jordan Weeks coming under intense pressure from your own Queekle. So the HM engineering machine leading the G-Drive Racing Exemia machine. And Well, this battle has been evolving for the next couple of, or for the past few laps, and I'm sure it will stay around the same for the next couple. It's given Josh Malin the Vibe Esports by Sim FX racing machine, that's a mouthful, just to drive away into the distance. He's now got a gap of almost 17 seconds, just tipping the top of 16 seconds up the road. And he's coming across the line now to start lap number 32 of the race. And Jesus, we've only got 40 minutes of the race remaining.
It's absolutely amazing. It's flown by now, and can I just say huge respect to Mr. Malin there and the leading Cup car at the moment. He's been so committed how he's gone about just dealing with traffic and all that stuff. Every time we've seen him, he has been sending it completely. And I think Jerome Quiegel is going to be happy that he's going to be behind the car in front for minutes and not for weeks, indeed.
Another one. You're definitely rolling him out today, Hasse.
I'll stop already. I'm sorry.
Nicholas Last.
Yellow carded myself there.
Nicholas Last losing out to Jan van Auter. You deserve a drive-through penalty. Jan van Auter now leading Nicholas Last in the G-Drive Racing Extreme machine. We've still got the team's impact cars together. Martin van der Leeuwick leading Jordan McLean, his teammate, going into the bus stop, sticking together. Those two are working their way past GT4 traffic together. The good thing is, if you stick together, as soon as traffic lets one car by, you tend to follow them through as well, so it minimises any lost time. But we're going to have to go back from this battle down a class to the GT Cup cars. Jeroen Quiegel not letting Jordan Weeks disappear into the distance at all. 3/10 between both of these two guys, and they're only going to get closer towards the end of the race, Hasse.
They certainly are, and we know that Jeroen, he certainly has the pace there in the G-Drive machine, so we'd expect him to be able to really put on the pressure to Jordan in front. And with this kind of time left in the race, 40 minutes, that's an awful long time to have to defend from a car this close to your rear end. And I think if I was Jordan Weeks, I'd maybe consider just trying to let Jeroen Quiegel by without maybe losing too much time on it. Maybe seeing if I could be sucked on by his slipstream indeed, and then hope to get the best of it from there. But I think Jordan Weeks might be having a bit of a different view there, because it's certainly not looking like he's giving up the position easily.
No, definitely not. They're getting ever closer going into the bus stop. We know Jeroen is very good on the brakes. He has a look to the inside. Can't quite get the move done this time into the bus stop. Still sticking under the rear wing of Jordan Weeks. 3/10 still between them once again. We're going to have to go back up to a previous class we were looking at. This is Nicholas Last, not letting Job van Auter keep the position for long. So he's gone up the inside of Job van Auter going into Les Combes. So he's reversed the position once again. And I've got a feeling it's going to be pretty much swapping every single lap from now. Obviously, you've got the big straight just before Les Combes, the camel straight. So as long as you're in the slipstream going onto that, you'll pretty much get the position before, if not at Les Combes. And Job van Auter, I don't think he's willing to wait for that long. He's looking left, looking right. Can't quite get the move done going into the double left-hander. And obviously a bit of traffic playing its part there. But Job van Auter just sticking under the rear wing. We're going to have to go back to this battle, because this is Jordan Weeks side by side with Jeroen Quiegel.
Quiegel's looking there, I think.
Yeah, he might just get it done. Jordan Weeks on the outside has to give, or Jordan Weeks on the inside has to get the position on Jeroen Quiegel. Jeroen looking all the way around the outside once again. We know he's a confident driver. He's definitely showing that to us today. Just gets shown the cold shoulder by Jordan Weeks, but Jordan still just managing to hold the position. There is a bit of GT4 or GTE traffic behind. That is the GRC machine of Ian Hannon trying to get past them both, but obviously that won't be on their minds at this point. I think they're just trying to focus on who can get the position. It looks like Jeroen Quiegel has got the best run of the two coming out of the double left-hander going into the second chicane. Can he get the move done? He looks to the inside, late on the brakes. He's got the inside, but that will quickly evolve to the outside. So Jordan Weeks just keeping the position at the moment. This is absolutely great racing, Hasse. Still side by side and no contact.
Fantastic stuff indeed from these two. Really going at it. Good racecraft there from Jordan Weeks to just give the space that Jeroen Quiegel needs, and not an inch more. Oh, and that's the G-Drive GT machine that gets past his own class traffic there. He's now going to be getting up to the teammate of his in the Cup Car. And of course, Jordan Weeks, so this might get a little dicey as well. It's the 90. Oh, that's the lead car indeed of Scott Andrews as well. And this indeed does get a little bit dicey for Scott Andrews, as he's forced to cut across the bus stop chicane there. And looked like a bit of a lock up maybe from one of the Cup cars. That caused a bit of swerving here. It's still Jordan Weeks hanging on to the position there, although dare I say they're closer than close, these two. And it doesn't seem like this battle is going anywhere at the moment. We're on the bumper of the Dutchman in third place in the Cup Car class. And that is absolutely the line through Rouge and Radion onto the Camel Straight. Is he close? Well, he's close, but I don't think he's close enough to Jordan Weeks. And there goes the second of the two teammates in the leading GTE cars. That's, of course, Bram van Putten, sharing the car with Martin van Dozenoord. Oh, and they're almost going to go 3-1. There's a bit of contact there as Weeks is still defending hard from Jeroen Kwikel. And I think it's worth mentioning as well that the car of Ian Hannon has even, well, just as I say that, he actually moves on past, but Ian Hannon has been held up behind these two for a long time by now. Now he's in between them, and that might calm things down for a moment, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. He's given them both a bit of respite. Obviously, you can't take it lightly, though. Jeroen Kwikel still going to be charging forward, and you've got to remember, if you let a piece of GTE traffic go by, you've got to remember that it will affect the car ahead as well, so don't get downhearted that the car disappears into the distance. But while that has happened, obviously Jeroen Kwikel slightly put backwards by the GTE car. Josh Cam is now just behind, so we haven't seen him for a while. We've seen him in the back end of shots, but not really seen him as a contender for this battle. But he's slowly catching up. 1 second up the road is Jeroen Kwikel for Josh Cam. So Josh just about keeping on the draft train with those two. Jeroen Kwikel, there he is. Nothing between those two guys now, and the gap has once again come back down. Jordan Weeks only half a second ahead of Jeroen Kwikel. I say that 3/10 now going into the bus stop. He's a little too far back for a move. Obviously, well, there's lots of traffic.
That's opportunistic from Kwikel. He's gonna get past you.
I didn't even notice that. I was looking at the traffic, but that's Jordan Weeks now side by side with Jeroen Kwikel. I didn't even see that coming. You sort of scared me a little bit, but for all good reason. Jeroen Kwikel trying to get the move done all the way around the outside. Can't quite get the move. Chopping and changing up and down the timing tower. You can see them swapping position as quickly as that, but Jeroen Kwikel still just behind the likes of Jordan Weeks. But Jordan has now got him right underneath his rear wing, going up towards Eau Rouge and Radion. That's very brave. Jeroen Kwikel going to the inside of Eau Rouge. You won't get that move done there, mate, but going over the top of Radion. Can Jordan Weeks keep Jeroen Kwikel behind? I can't see it happening. Jeroen Kwikel is in the draft. He's going to look to the left, look to the right. Can't quite get the move done. That's Jordan Weeks using all the road he can, defending as hard as he can from Jeroen Kwikel.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, Jack, but just to say that's the car of Josh Cam now appearing half a second behind these two. Look, and he's going to get the run on Kwikel here as well. So he's really taken advantage of this battling going on ahead, and he's clawed back. Well, I don't really remember how far behind he was, but he's appeared from out of nowhere. We didn't really see him. All of a sudden, boom, he's there, and he's turned this excellent two-way battle into a three-way now. And what is not to like about that?
It's crazy good work from Josh Cam. We haven't seen massive amounts from him during the race. We saw him towards the start of the race defending hard for what was an absolutely amazing position in the Cup class, but he's worked his way back onto this battle, and obviously this is a battle for P2 in the class overall. I didn't even really notice that. It was just 3 cars line abreast, but this is for the last 2 spots on the podium. So Jordan Weeks still leading the train of 3 cars. Jeroen Kwikel just behind, still 2 tenths between these 2 guys. And I know I've got to go away from this battle because there are battles elsewhere on the field, but I just don't want to.
I think none of us really wants to go away from this one at the moment. But it's certainly looking so exciting, this one. I don't think it's going anywhere, although I am afraid that if we cut away from it, all of a sudden we're gonna miss Kwikel jumping by on Jordan Weeks, though could of course always go for the replay. It's 2.5 seconds or so between the two leading cars of Scott Andrews and Bram van Putten, and a gap of 25 seconds then down to Matthew Cripps. So by now the leading GTs, except for the leading two GTs, but from down there on, it's beginning to spread out a little bit. That said, we also have the cars of Nicholas Last, Ewan Marshall, and Job van Uitert sort of within a second as well. That's the GT battle for 7th, 8th, and 9th position, and that's actually a four-way battle within 2 seconds of one another.
Great noises coming out of these guys here and screaming by. I think just listening to them shows how close they are. Literally all half a second separating two of them. This is Ewan Marshall deciding what he's going to do with the ever closer Job van Uitert in the GT3 Exemia machine, driving towards Blanchimont. Job van Uitert goes for the preferred line up the inside. I think that will keep the position. Obviously, he does have to give Ewan Marshall plenty of room around the outside. He does just that. Ewan looking all the way around the outside, can't quite get the move done. He was doing everything he can to hold the position. Job van Uitert moving up another position once again, now in P7 in class, P7 overall. Ewan Marshall just behind. Seeing what he can do about making amends for that lost position, and obviously if he compromises his line a little too much on the aggression, he's got Austin Greatorex just behind. See what he can do. We're gonna have to go back to this battle as well. I know they are teammates, but Jordan McClone going round the outside of Martin van der Reewijk. I think that might have just been defense. I don't think that was a move for position. It was actually Jordan McClone taking over from his teammate. I don't think team orders are in play here. Still nose to tail of these two guys, and I'm sort of glad we did move away from that GT Cup battle, because it seems to have opened up a little bit. There is your own Queekle. Jordan Weeks is a little further up the road. Josh Cam is still about half a second away from your own Queekle, but they're not half as close as when we were looking at them, Hasse.
Yeah, indeed. Something happened, and I think Queekle might have had a small off-track there within the last laps, sort of within the space of the last lap's time, and that might be what have cost him around that second piece behind. Here we have it. It's another assault there as they do go too wide into Lecombe, and oh, Cam, and they go too wide into Malmedy, but Cam not exactly able to get alongside on the run down to Brussels, and as you said, Jack, it has split this battle up a little bit, and let's just hope for it to get right back together, because it was more than enjoyable indeed. And of course, let's not paint a bad picture here. It's not like they've suddenly blown miles apart.
No, definitely not. Still half an hour of the race to go, and I think that battle we were just looking at was definitely the best battle we've seen all race. We're well over halfway through, and these guys were separated by less than a second. All three of them, I'm pretty sure, at one point. But they've separated out a little bit, give themselves a bit of breathing space. So I'm sure they'll just let the car cool down, let themselves cool down, and then get back straight into it. Josh Cam is there to pick up the pieces. If anything goes wrong, you've got to make sure we do mention that, because that is definitely a possibility. We're going to go back to this Ewan Marshall Job van Uitert battle. No, pardon me. Ewan Marshall Austin Greatorex battle. Job van Uitert has quickly disappeared into the distance. 1.5 seconds. There you go. You can see him powering his way onto the start-finish straight for the 40th time of asking. But Ewan Marshall still leading Austin Greatorex by just about 3/10. These two have been dicing together for the past couple of laps, but nothing major moving around in that. But you see the marbles on the track, so track evolution, I'm sure, will start to play a point. Or it definitely will have done by now, because obviously it will be getting hotter. We are getting later on into the day. The session started at around 10:30 in the morning during sim time. So these guys will have to start dealing with changeable track conditions. Obviously, everything's getting hotter, and the tyres will start to fall off as well. So definitely going to be a busy job in the cockpit of all these GTE cars. This is Austin Greatorex looking to the inside of Ewan Marshall. Can't quite get the move done going into Lecombe, and they still follow line abreast. But these two battling is just letting the GT3 Exemia machine of Job van Uitert disappear into the distance, Hasse.
Yeah, they very much are. Another thing worth noticing about the track conditions is the amount of rubber that's being laid in from the driving, which will, of course, increase the amount of grip that the drivers have available to them. I want to say thanks to PorscheSport thanks for the awesome stream, and likes for that. Lots of thumbs up, and of course, do leave us a like if you like what you see on your screen here from me and Jack here at Sim Racers World. Of course, we are watching the PorscheSport 2 hours of Spa multi-class race, and it's been some absolutely fantastic stuff here for the first 75% of this set race. As Jaap van Uytert get past his teammate, and a look from, is that Daniel Perry? Indeed, in the 28 machine.
Yeah, Daniel Perry working his way past Sene Hulsmans. We've seen Sene drop back quite a little bit at this late part in the race, so Sene struggling for pace. This is Daniel Perry looking to the inside. There we go, he pops around somewhere, does Sene Hulsmans. A little bit of connection issue there, so that must have been quite scary for Daniel Perry, pulling out of the move as should. Great job by Daniel not to end up inside of Sene Hulsmans, but Daniel definitely putting on the pressure. Half a second, or basically 4/10 separating these two guys now, so getting ever closer, going down the hill in towards what I believe is Pouan. Please do correct me if I'm wrong.
It very
A double
much is.
left-hander. We've had an issue for Hugo Drouet. We haven't seen him that much on the stream in the GT Cup class for the fiercely forward driver. Let's see what happened. Did he use too much curb? He uses not much on the entry. We've seen that happen before. Keeps it out the wall out.
Well kept. Well kept.
Yeah, it's a great job to keep that pointing the right way. Just about. We've lost camera footage. There we go. There he is, going on along the old start-finish straight up towards Eau Rouge and Radiant. Got it. Still got it pointing the right way. So a great job from him. He's got his teammate quite a way back behind him now. I actually can't see Josh. There he is. There is Mr. Josh Clog, also known as Josh Clogchamp for anybody else that watches the Sim Stickers Sim Racers World Formula 3 series. Obviously, this isn't the only thing we stream. We've got various other things that we stream. You just missed out on the Simmortal Sim Racers World TCR series. That was covered by Hasse. The final round was definitely covered by Hasse. That was an absolutely amazing piece of commentary, and it was an absolutely amazing race on the Nordschleife VLN layout. And then I think it is, yes, next Thursday, we have got the final round of the Sim Stickers Sim Racers World Formula 3 series, so please make sure you pop by and say hello to Chaz Draycott, who will be in the booth for that as well. If today is anything to go by, it's going to be an absolutely crazy one as well. But back to the action. This is Josh Clog. We'll see whether we can find a nice close battle. Jeroen Kweekel has still got around a second to Josh Cam behind, and he's got about 1.2 seconds ahead to Jordan Weeks. So they've separated out quite nicely. A bit of breathing space between them all. Jordan Weeks very sideways. I think everybody is. Everybody enjoying all the power they've got at their right foot coming out of La Source. So throwing the cars around, probably not what you want to do. We're still 25 minutes of the race to go. You don't want to cook your rear tyres, but we've said these Porsches do like to go sideways, and they're just showing it off.
And you know what, Jack?
Marshall.
You know what, Jack? That was 10 out of 10 for style points there from Jordan Weeks exiting La Source. That was absolutely beautiful, and we've seen cars on other occasions tonight, basically parallel, parallel drifting coming out of the bus stop. It's been looking like something more at home in a Japanese anime series. It's been absolutely beautiful to watch indeed. It goes to show also the level of skill. Mind you, the Cup cars neither have traction control or ABS, and that is very much the reason that we've seen them act just a little more lively on corner exit than the GTEs and the GT4s. And speaking of the GT4s, because they're not the fastest of cars necessarily to drive, some people are under the impression that they're easy to drive. And I just want to make it clear that that is very much not necessarily the case. You do really rely on your mechanical grip for, well, all the grip pretty much in those machines. There's really not a lot of downforce. And in turns, of course, it doesn't go that quickly. But as you can see there, a good example there as that's Hulsmans, I think, who has a bit of a moment right in front of Daniel Perry. Indeed, Sene Hulsmans in the No Fear Energy Racing car. Just goes to show that the less fast car in this situation actually could be labeled as being a little bit more challenging to drive than the GTs with all the downforce they have. What's your opinion on that, Jane?
Yeah, definitely. I've had a slight bit of experience in the GT4s as well, in the IMSA Pilot Challenge, where you're against the Audi they are RS3 LMS cars. We've just seen Daniel Perry in the background dive into the pit, so it's a very late pit stop for him. I'm assuming he's just taking the splash and dash now. It's better to take it now than at the end of the race, I think, but he has left Sene Hulsmans to his own devices. We've got a battle in the background. That's Jordan Weeks coming under pressure from Jeroen Kweekel. Jeroen really closed up going into the source. I'm sure I'll get back to your question, Hasse, but may as well stick with the action at the moment. Jordan Weeks just managing to keep Jeroen Kweekel behind. So doing a great job there. Josh Cam's fallen back a little bit, but he's had to let some traffic by. That is the GRC car of Ian Hannon. We've seen him on the stream a fair bit. We haven't necessarily been watching him himself, but he just seems to be showing up in the camera here, there and everywhere. So we sort of got that part right. But now Jordan Weeks has got Jeroen Kweekel right underneath his rear ring. Jeroen Kweekel dives out to what will quickly become the outside of Lecom, going into the right-hander. Can he get the move done? He's quickly evolved into the inside. He's still got the preferred line, but then he'll go once again back to the outside. Ian Hannon behind. They're still side by side. I thought they'd got off, and that's Jeroen Kweekel into the gravel. Just manages to keep it out the barrier. Great job by Jeroen Kweekel. I don't know how he manages to keep that out the barrier, and he's somehow managed to come out on top with that because he got the preferred line, and he's once again right under the rear wing of Jordan Weeks. So this is absolutely amazing driving from the pair of these guys, and I'm guessing it's going to quickly evolve into a battle we saw not 10 laps ago.
Yeah, indeed, and we've got Josh Malin a bit away up the road now. 24 seconds is his lead, and that's of course coming down to the fact that they've been battling so hard over the last number of laps here. We've got Josh Cam still close in the number 7 PorscheSport machine, and then Steve Claes in the well, I want to say second, but there's more of them in another one of the GT3 Cup cars, who's actually beginning to close in on these cars as well. The gap from him to the cars ahead is about 5 seconds now, but it's been closing over the last couple of laps, and we've been seeing him claw his way back now as Jeroen Kweekel is really closing in, and he's now gonna go too wide coming up towards Blanchimont, but that's not the place to do it here. Can he stay out there? That's gonna be a gutsy one indeed, and Cam's gonna be in a good position because he's gonna have the overspeed coming down towards the bus stop. We're gonna have to see here as Weeks keeps on this defensive show. He's doing so well at defending. Jeroen Kweekel just cannot find any type of way past, because you're getting the sensation here that if he could, he most certainly would. But it's no luck so far for the G-Drive driver there in third in class.
Yeah, absolutely amazing battle. So many people in chat are saying, what a battle. Ian Roots, he's decided to take a break from race direction just to enjoy the spectacle that is this amazing GT Cup car battle. And I don't blame him either. We've got Chris Jones as well saying it's an absolutely amazing battle, and it definitely is. Jordan Weeks still once again out in front, but Jeroen Kweekel is in the draft, and Josh Cam is much closer than he was on the lap prior. So we'll see whether Jeroen Kweekel can get the move done. Jordan Weeks sticking to his guns once again. We've had someone in chat say Jeroen Kweekel can definitely rally, and he's doesn't matter where he does it. He's just looking to go around the outside of Jordan Weeks. Can he still get it done? He tried this on the lap prior. He's in exactly the same position. Let's hope he doesn't get hung out to dry this time as well. Can he get it done around the outside going into the Brussels hairpin? He's a lot further alongside than he was before. Jeroen Kweekel has almost got the move done, but he's still got Jordan Weeks on the inside. Josh Cam is watching this from behind. He's got the best seat in the house. Jordan Weeks, I don't know how he's still in front, but he's doing an absolutely amazing job. Jeroen Kweekel just has to let the position go. Josh Cam is watching this unfold in front of him, but he's also got to make sure that he doesn't overdrive his car and get distracted, because he's got obviously these positions to make up as well. The Simpact cars are going to play part in this. So this is Carl Sharkey. No, it's not. Carl Sharkey's a Strasser sports car. I can't quite find the
it's McLone and Van Rooijk in the Simpact cars. Yeah. Not much I can tell you here as Kweekel almost makes contact with the rear end of Jordan Weeks' car. And Josh Cam is biding his time. I think if I were Josh, I'd be maybe even licking my lips a bit at the sights of what's going on. And the prospect of 20 more minutes of racing. Well, just about 20 minutes. It's actually 18 and a half by now. And time does really fly by when you're enjoying yourself. And dare I say, we've really been enjoying ourselves here in the booth tonight, Jack. It's been such a great race to not only commentate on, but just to watch it in itself here as the Simpact machines are trying to squeeze by on Jordan Weeks into the bus stop. It's also been a great pleasure working in the booth with you for these 1 hour and 40 minutes. I'm looking forward to the last 20 as well.
It definitely has. You wouldn't have thought that this is their first time in the booth. Yes, we trip over each other, but it's all for good cause. Jordan Weeks still in front of Jeroen Kweekel. Jeroen Kweekel dives to the inside. Can he get the move done? He's late on the brakes into La Source. He's alongside. He gets the move done finally, but he runs wide. And Josh Cam nearly collects the back of Jordan Weeks. They're almost 3 wide going up towards Eau Rouge. This is absolutely amazing racing. Jordan Weeks is still managing to stay in front. I don't know how he's managing to do this. This is absolutely amazing racing. And I'm so glad that this will repost because I want to watch this back. That's your own Weekle almost in the barrier. There's contact to the top of Eau Rouge. That's such a shame. Jordan Weeks just gets tapped by the back of your own Weekle. I'm sure the race directors will have to have a look at that. Your own Weekle just manages to carry on. Josh Cam, you did say he was licking his lips, and his wish came true. He manages to take both positions. We will have to have a look back at that incident. We'll actually have a look at Jordan Weeks to see what happened going up through Eau Rouge at Radion. Does he get a tap from behind? He does run wide. Your own Weekle does touch the inside of him. We'll have to have a look back.
But you feel like Weekle seems like he's trying to just kind of avoid him in the first place. It looks to me like that car of Jordan Weeks. Yeah, let's have an onboard review here before we say anything. Oh, that's the contact there. You clearly see how it unsettles the car for Jordan Weeks, and that is most unfortunate. Here comes the view from Weekle. Oh, but he actually... The question is, because he touches the inside curb there in Eau Rouge, and I think that might have caused the car to slide across the road in a way that wasn't perhaps completely expected there from your own Weekle. So certainly I don't think there was any kind of malicious intent involved in that situation, but very bad luck nonetheless for Jordan Weeks, who is out of the race, ladies and gentlemen. What a shame indeed.
Yeah, definitely. That was evolving into an absolutely amazing battle. Obviously, your own Weekle is still battling Josh Cam just under his rear wing, but it really does take it out of you knowing that the HM engineering machine of Jordan Weeks isn't in this battle anymore. It did look like your own Weekle left him little room, but Josh Cam is also going to lose out to your own Weekle by the looks of it. Your own up the inside, nice and lay on the brakes. Josh is taking the wider line in, seeing whether he can get the cutback, but he lights the rears up on the exit of the bus stop and can't quite get the car pointing in the right direction. But while these two have been battling, the G-Drive Racing Eximio Cup car of Steve Clays is just behind, so he's now joined the party. So one car out and one car straight back in again, and I'm expecting to see this battle evolve into something that we've already seen.
Yeah, it's going to look strangely familiar with the PorscheSport car battling two G-Drive machines. Although that wasn't the G-Drive machine that we had wrecked before, so that's a bit of I don't know why I'm sitting here making stuff up. But indeed, it's going to be a bit of a sandwich now for Josh Cam. So he's going to keep his head cool, or he's going to have to keep his head cool because he could be playing some kind of team games on him here. Although that would be something we don't really want to see. We don't want to see Weekle back him up into Steve Clays so Clays can get through, but we've seen worse team tactics in the history of motorsports. But my take would probably be that they're just going to race it to the end fair and square. We've seen some hard, good racing as well. I haven't seen any form of like really malicious incidents, although it's tough really to get through a race like this with any kind of without any kind of car contacts at some point there. That's the number 3 Fury Sim Sports car that actually, just as I talk about contact, I obviously have a curse as well, and Josh Cam in the number 7 machine, he just got hit by it. Yeah,
that's so sad for Josh Cam. He watched the battle evolve in front of him previously with the HM Engineering machine and the G-Drive Racing machine, and he made the most of that, but he's lost out once again. It's just more busy work for Ian Roots. He did say that the original incident for the 3 cars where Steve Weeks, yes, I am right, Jordan Weeks, pardon me, I was looking at Steve Clays. Jordan Weeks sadly lost out, so Ian's looking at that, but he's also got to look at that incident with Josh Camps. He's lost out majorly. We've had an issue for William Chadwick. We'll have to have a look back to see what happened there, if I can eventually get it on the timing tower. There we go. So he's already in the wall at the top of Eau Rouge and Radion. Or at the top of Radion, just onto the Camel Straight. reverses out onto the racing line, gets it pointed the right way, and decides, no, he doesn't want to go that way, and puts it straight back into the barrier again. We'll go back live with him just to see where he is. He is indeed in the pit lane. There is the hospitality that Spa provide you. So you can see everybody having a great time. I'm sure they watched the battle as well. This is Luke Thies working his way up through the order in that beautiful Dynamic Simulators. I don't actually think it's a Dynamic Simulators livery. You did mention that it is a type of alcohol. It doesn't quite spring to mind, but he is P28 overall, P13 in class. He's still got Ben Sharp and Maxime Ramstein ahead in the GT4s before he starts to catch up with anybody in his class. I say that Jordan Weeks, he is still showing up on the timing tower, but obviously he is no longer in the race. But from one HM Engineering car to the other, we'll go to Maxime Ramstein, the current leader of the GT4 class. He has got a gap of, not quite sure it's right. Oh, there we go. It's just updated. 1 minute 17 to Ben Sharp behind. So Maxime Ramstein really controlling the race from the front of the GT4 field. So he's doing a great job. It's been pretty under the radar from him. He's gained 9 positions from where he started, and he's worked his way up to P1 in the GT4 class, and he's just sort of stuck there. He's clearly stayed out the way if everybody needs to. You can see letting traffic by. Great driving from Maxime. And he's just keeping his head down and keeps on churning out the laps, Hasse.
It's been absolutely perfect for Maxim so far in this race. He's been going around, not setting a foot wrong at all here. And just a good showcase of how to get results in this kind of race. Pick it off slowly, keep it clean, and you'll be in for good things after 2 hours here. And speaking of 2 hours, we are closing in on the final 10 minutes of racing here. We still have Scott Andrews leading Bram van Putten in the two Jeep drive machines. They're separated by about 2 seconds. And to be honest, I think this is the biggest gap we've seen between these two cars at any point of the race as well. They have been going about it, but Scott Andrews now in a very good position to see this through, I think, unless Bram can find some extra kind of gear. It's of course still Crispness himself in third place there with Matthew Thrift for Fiercely Forward. Matthias Tem in fourth place. Tom Emson in fifth. Austin Gridsucks in sixth place. And then Ewan Marshall, Nicholas last, not last. Carl Sharkey for Strasse Motorsports. And they still seem to be carrying on well. There's going to be a battle for position there with Job van Outert. I think that very well could be. It is indeed 1.7 seconds between the two cars. So something under development here at this point. And I think something we could be having to look out for coming into these final couple minutes, especially for the GTE cars, is that we did see some of them pit in before getting into the final hour. And usually I think that most of the teams will probably have this situation under control, having done their fuel saving whenever they need to do it there throughout the second stint. But we could be seeing drivers having to come in for a short splash and dash within the final minutes, and that could really shake up things, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. We saw a lot of ranging in strategy. We've had another incident for Ian Hannon. We've seen him on the stream before, the GRC driver, carving his way through traffic. That's all he seems to be able to do today. He's been doing quite a good job of it as well. He's been nice and patient. Oh, that's a big snap coming out of Stavlo 2. Does he hit the wall? He does indeed. That's quite a big hit, although it isn't straight into Armco. He does collect the tyres, so it doesn't look like that's going to be some major damage for him. We'll go back live with him just to see how he's doing. Going through Bonchemont, we can have a better look at the front end of the car. Nothing major there. A slight kink in the rear wing, but it doesn't look like to be affecting him for that long. He might have had that for quite a while. Going through the bus stop, is he going to dive into the pits? No, he's going to carry on going. He's going to keep the car on the track. And actually, speaking of GTE cars, we've got the Strasse Motorsport car. You did mention it like literally 30 seconds ago and saying it might evolve into something, but it definitely has. Job van Outert is on the tail of Carl Sharkey. Job currently in P10, seeing what he can do about the Strasse Motorsport car of Carl Sharkey to gain P9, 1/10 between them now, going into the second pair of S's, seeing what he can do. Dives to the inside, late on the brakes, just gets the move done. Great job by Job van Outert. Absolutely textbook move. Dives to the inside last minute, late on the brakes, slides the car through the S's and gets the move done. And he is going to get his head down and keep driving forward, although he has got a 30-second gap to this man here, Nicholas Last, in the Sim Racing Academy red car. So I doubt that will be any sort of target for him at the moment. And with only 8 minutes of the race to go now, that's gone very quickly. I don't think Job van Auter will be able to pick up another position, but he's had an absolutely amazing comeback drive. Obviously, that car did end up on its roof in the previous stint, Hasse.
It certainly did, and it was quite the incident when it did. It wasn't just a simple, like, roll over, and that's it. No, it was multiple rolls, and I think they'll be very happy they had that fast repair to go about with, because had that not been the case, they would have had a bent car, to say the least, by now. But look at that lap time by Job van Auter there. 2:15.7 at this point of the race. It's a very competitive lap from the 26 car indeed. And that goes to show that's over 2 seconds faster than Carl Schake's last lap there in the Stresse Motorsports car. And that just goes to show the kind of pace advantage that he's been sitting on to close that gap up, because that gap was rather big at some point of this race. Obviously he's gonna have had lost about a minute and a half, maybe even towing the car from the roll. So good job there from good job.
Yeah, great job from Job van Auter. And you were saying that G-Drive car is quick in the hands of Job van Auter, but his teammate Bram van Putten, currently in P2, chasing down Scott Andrews. Now only 6/10 between them, so they've definitely closed up to the tune of about 1.5 seconds in the past 10 minutes. His previous lap time was a 2-minute 14.30. That was 2-minute 14.56. So only 2.5 tenths slower than his overall fastest lap. So he is definitely setting lap one pace. This is Bram van Putten looking to the inside and then the outside of all of this traffic. There's a GT4 car, a GT3 car, and then obviously both the G-Drive GTE cars. There's contact between the teammate. That's Bram van Putten hitting the tail end of Scott Andrews. So Scott caught the brakes. I think that's a car in the wall. That's a massive hit for Justin Riem. We'll have a look to see what happened with that. Coming out of Stablo 2, the car snapped one way, I think. And what happened here? Was there incident? No, the car just snapped one way. I'm not 100% sure what happened there. That could be a hardware issue. We'll have to keep an eye on it. The front wheels jammed on all the way to full lock on the left. Has he got back out? He's still sat there. That could be hardware lockup. The engine is still running and at sort of a weird sort of rev range. So that does look, it has all the signs of a hardware issue. We've got Bram van Putten still following his G-Drive teammate of Scott Andrews, but Scott will be carrying that tail end damage, and obviously Bram will be carrying that front end damage after those two came together. We've had Ewan Marshall dive into the pits. No, we haven't. It just steady dived into the pits, so that's the timing software messing around with me. But we've still got the two Simpact cars, nose to tail, so from one pair of teammates to the other. Martin van der Reewijk still following Jordan McLeod, and there's half a second between those two. We're going to have to go from these teammates back up to Scott Andrews. Scott Andrews now under intense pressure from Bram van Putten going into Le Com. Can Bram van Putten get the move done? He dives to the inside. It looks like he'll get the move done late on the brakes, gets the move done just up the inside. Scott Andrews pulling back into the draft with 5 minutes of the race to go. This battle is not going anywhere, Hasse.
It certainly isn't. It's going to be an intense final 5 minutes here, and they're going to be trying just to carve their way safely through the traffic, as they will only just manage about to do before that situation. To have that so close to the end of a 2-hour race, that is not what you want to have. I mean, I expect that could have been a Code Brown moment for both of the G-Drive cars there as they made contact. Oh, and there again, huge off track there. That's Bram van Putten, and Andrews might be gaining the lead as they go into La Forge, the second of the two chicanes and the track, and he does indeed. Scott Andrews back in the lead. And I think we should have another look at whatever happened to the car of Bram van Putten there. Was that just evasive action? Let's have a look. I think that is.
Yeah, blocked by the bridge. We'll have a look back at it again, but we'll have a look from this view just to see what happened. He goes to the outside. The gap very quickly disappears, throws the car to the outside onto all the exit runoff he gets. That might have picked up a slowdown. Definitely picked up an off track, and then obviously that meant that his teammate Scott Andrews could re-inherit the lead from him. So, well, I say that, but Bram van Putten on the brakes gets up the inside at the bus stop. So they've swapped positions once again. These G-Drive teammates not deciding who wants the lead. It's more like, no, you have it, no, you have it. And I don't think either of them wants it at this point. Bram van Putten once again back in the lead, setting a 2-minute 15.954. So definitely race pace for these guys, even though they're battling nose to tail. Scott Andrews is still just behind, can't quite keep the lead at this point. He has led for the most laps at the moment. He has that, yeah, he has led the race for the most laps. We are now on lap 51. The next car behind is Matthew Crisp. There he is. He's just going through. That is Stavlo, not even come onto lap 51 yet. So Matthew Crisp in a world of his own, just keeping the car on the road, 53 seconds ahead to his teammate and 48 seconds behind. Well, actually, I'm going to have to go back to the teammates. Scott Andrews going around the outside of Bram van Putten, almost contact, gets it slowed down, round through Lacombe, sorry, and he just manages to keep the position, maybe.
Yeah, because they're still side by side through Malmedy there, Jack, and I think though Scott has his car ahead. He doesn't get it turned into the apex, and Bram van Putten keeps his nose in, although not for long. Scott Andrews, what a brilliant battle this is. I'm afraid we have had a crash for Greg Franks as well at some point here not too long ago, and I believe, by the way, Jack, that we're looking at 2 more laps for the lead cars. Here comes Greg Franks, that's in the source. And he just carries too much speed into the corner. Swings around the rear end. Damage done there. That's going to be an incident to live with without any type of worries there for Greg. We're now back with the lead GT battles. Scott Andrew still hanging on to it. And I have to wonder whether they're thinking, okay, let's just first of all, just make sure that we actually make it to the line, as they are about to start. Well, I think, is it going to be 2 more laps from here, Jack?
It will be the final lap.
Yeah, it will be the final lap.
Yes, it definitely will be. Scott Andrews comes across the line for what will be the second to last time of asking, and we're only got 1 minute of the race remaining. This 2 hours has gone incredibly quickly, and we did mention it earlier that the GTE cars might have to go for a splash and dash. That is definitely the case for Tom Emson and Ewan Marshall, who's also going into the pits. We're just showing off some of the hospitality Spa has once again, but Bram van Putten still doing everything he can to catch on to the coattails of Scott Andrews. Obviously, with those cars pitting, we've got to remember that Matthew Crisp, our P3 driver, is well and truly safe now. He's got 1 minute gap behind and a 52-second gap ahead, so he's just keeping it on the road, but we'll stick with this teammate battle at the moment. Bram van Putten going all the way to the left, all the way to the right, using all the Kemmel straight he can. Late on the brakes, can he get the move done around the outside? We've seen it happen before, can't quite get the car gripped up, but he's still on the inside. Nearly gets closed into the corner by Scott Andrews, his teammate, but he runs wide going into the second part of the chicane. Scott Andrews must have secured this position for the rest of the race. I don't want to say that though, because there's 8 tenths between them, but knowing these guys, they'll be nose to tail again within the space of 3 corners.
There was a slight swerve there before from the car Scott Andrews that just seemed to catch out Bram van Putten, as he really missed the apex of, well, that was up in Malmedy indeed. Now they're down at Pouhon, running down the hill. And I would believe you to be right. Have we seen the white flag yet? That is then the question. Oh, he's now being held up, Bram van Putten, and I think that could decide the race. If the small situation there before in the second sector didn't, well, then coming into the final one, I think that very much could have, because the gap is now up to over a second. And Scott Andrews now looks comfortable in the lead. He's on the Kemmel straight, up towards Blanchemont, and through it safely into the bus stop he comes. And it is going to be the checkered flag, and it's going to be a 1-2 for G-Drive Racing Eximia, with the 94 cars of Scott D. Andrews taking the win solo drive, and Bram van Putten sharing the car with Martin van Loosenhoort. They come home for second. What a battle it's been between these 2 cars. It's been absolutely amazing to watch here. We've got Matthew Crisp with, I'm gonna use another crisp little piece of analogy here, but it's certainly been a crisp performance from him as well today. He's been running so well in the fiercely forward car on the number 34 machine. He's been bringing it about safely. He's been very committed in the traffic as well, especially through that first stint He's shown great pace, great racecraft, and he's gonna get a podium position to show for it. So certainly not bad at all. We still have a last lap to go for the lead 3 Cup cars as well. And that's of course the cars of Josh Malin, Jeroen Kwiekel and Steve Claes at the moment. With Josh, Cam and Vince Peters already having crossed the line there. So there it is for crisp 3rd place secured. Here is Josh Malin looking to pass
Clock.
That's Glock, yeah, indeed. That's one of the cars you know, indeed, Jack.
Definitely is. But I'm going to have to steal a quote from one of our co-commentators at Sim Racers World, Chaz Draycott. Please, can we have some clap emojis in chat, just to show support for everybody that took part. Obviously, G-Drive did an absolutely amazing job, and we're going to see Josh Malin take the win for the GT Cup class. The Vibe Esports SimFX Racing number 90 car wins the GT Cup class. So a great job from Josh Malin. Even though all the battling that evolved behind him, it didn't seem to bother him at all. He just kept his head forward and kept on chugging along. We've got some donuts, or plenty of donuts, going along in the background. There's a HM Engineering car deciding that he wants to go backwards. I think that's Maxime Ramstein. It is indeed. So Maxime Ramstein wins the GT4 class for HM Engineering, the number 729 car. So great job from him. Everybody showing off some support, or I think everybody's doing donuts or drifting side to side. And I just noticed that Jordan McClone ended up taking top honours between the 2 Simpax cars. So Jordan McClone just managing to beat his teammate Martin van Rijwijk to the line. So a great job from all those guys, and I think that is pretty much everybody has crossed the line. We'll have a look further back. It is indeed. So everybody has crossed the line. Even though we had Justin Reim retire from the race, he still ended up finishing P32 ahead of 2 of our GT4 finishers. So it just shows that no matter how far you push in the race, even if you do end up having to retire, you still might finish ahead of some of the current finishers. But a great race all round, Hasse, and it's been an absolute pleasure to commentate with you. And we've still got the results to talk through, so we've still got plenty to go.
Certainly we do, and we've also got a couple of interviews, and I think there's going to be some interesting points to bring about. There it is, the race results as mentioned, the 2 G-Drive GTs, the 94 and 23 cars on top of affairs. There's such a strong drive indeed. Fiercely Forward in 3rd, with Wrights Racing 4th, Fury Simsport in 5th. Then Sim Racing Academy Red in 6th place. The 26 G-Drive machine, that's the machine that rolled, the machine of Job van Outert, making it up to 7th place, I think in part because of those late pit stops as well, the splash and dash stops that were happening in the class. The Vibe Esports by SimFX Racing blue car, that's the 27 machine, they're finishing 8th. And then Strasse gaining a position on the pit stop as well, with Carl Sharkey finishing in 9th place. Miracle Racing's best position, I think they won't be completely happy with that, but the 18 car there finishing in 10th, and that is of course the car of Ewan Marshall. And then of course my team Simpac, not the luckiest of lads today, but that goes for both Jordan McClone and Martin van Rijwijk, and they're in 11th and 13th, just split by the GRC car of Ian Hannon. And with that, I think we are... Oh yeah, this is of course some of the cars. The Fury Simsport car 44 machine, I think, went out of the race. Yeah, indeed. So the rest of the cars are retired, as you can see on the lap counter as well. So that'll be the results from the GTE class. There might be a couple of more retired cars, although I'm not completely sure on that.
So that's it for the GTE results. Thank you very much for running us through them, Hasse. We'll go on to the Cup results now. So after an absolutely amazing drive from Josh Malin, he did a great job in the hands of that Vibe Esports by SimFX Racing machine. He takes top honours in the GT Cup class, so a great job from him. 30 seconds down the road was the hard-charging Jeroen Kwiekel in the G-Drive Racing Exemia number 55 car. So he did a great job, even after getting caught up in a little bit of strife. He managed to cross the line P2, and rounding out the podium is his G-Drive Racing Exemia teammate, That was Steve Clay. So a great job from Steve bringing his Porsche Cup Car home in P3. Then we've got the ever favourite Josh Camp, the PorscheSport car himself, manages to cross the line at P4. SROC Racing Forces, number 45, that was driven by Vince Peters, crosses the line in P5. Shortly followed by Meraki Racing's Gregory Branks in P6. Hugo's Rouet crosses the line in P7, shortly followed by his teammate Josh Clogg, manages to cross the line P8. Chris Walsh, P9, and Pimbo Powell finishes in P10 in his 911 G-Drive racing machine. Then we start to get to the cars that were more than a few laps down. So we get to the Sim Racing channel. Let me try and find it on the actual timing screen. There we go. So the number 912 Sim Racing channel machine crosses the line in P12. I've missed out Dynamic Simulators, so well done to Dynamic Simulators, finishing P11. We then get to Jordan Weeks. He sadly retired after what was an absolutely amazing battle behind the wheel of that HM Engineering number 959 machine. And then we get to the cars that really started to drop off at the start. We got the Buell brothers and then two Meraki Racing cars. But so only one of the Meraki Racing cars crossing the line at the end. That was Tom Metterell and Lewis Ward, sadly not taking the checkered flag. But that was the results for the GT Cup class, and I'll leave Hasse to take you through the GT4 results.
And it's going to be my pleasure indeed, Jack. And what a performance there from HM Engineering, the 729 car of, excuse me, of Maxim Ramstein. What a performance it's been. They've been atop. And I was just about to say for the entirety of the race, obviously gaining 9 positions. It's not going to be true, but it's been a very, very strong performance indeed on their account. And just trying to look down through the order here. Ben Sharp, of course, for Fury Sim Sport, second in class there with Luke. No, that's Chris Moretta for Meraki in the 888 machine, third, of course. Yes, indeed. Jeff P. Lewis for Ascari in 5th place with Edward Rabracker of Fury Sim Sport just behind. In 6th, it's going to be Daniel Perry as well of Fury. William Chadwick finishing in 7th place for Vibe Esports by SimFX Racing, although I think he had a bit of a moment at some point. We've got Sene Hulsmans from No Fear Energy Racing. We've seen him for quite a bit. He had a couple of incidents as well in the race, but taking the checkered flag nonetheless. As well for Fury, it's going to be Paul Cook at 9th. And then in 10th place, Mike Barton for No Fear Energy Racing. 11th is going to be Andrew Hopley, who had a bit of bad luck as well for Meraki Racing. And Calvin Gretorix, there are 2 of them for Rides Racing. He was in a GT4, although not with a lot of luck there. And I think that concludes the class as well.
Does indeed. It's amazingly, it doesn't conclude the evening though. We've still got some interviews to go through. So what I will do for you is I will drag in one of our GTE drivers managing to cross the line in P3. So Matthew Crisp, what a race, and I'm sure you're more than happy with that result.
I certainly am. It's all ended for me really after the first few corners. There was so much carnage up at the front, and then after that, really, it was just a case of saving fuel, and bringing it home.
Yeah, it's an absolutely crazy race, and first of all, well done. It was a really good result. I'm just playing around with the timing screen, see where I can get it working, so I can actually show you. No, I'm just going to leave it because I can't quite get it working. But yeah, so just a quick couple of questions to run you through, because obviously a 2-hour race, lots can happen and lots can change. So how would you sort of, was the track evolving? Because we did mention in the commentary booth that the track will start to evolve towards the end of the race. Obviously more tire or more of the tyre will start to bed into the circuit, and obviously the track, by the looks of it, was getting hotter because you're getting later into the day. Did that play a massive part in your race?
Yeah, it definitely was slower overall towards the end of the race. To be honest, fuel was such an issue that I wasn't worried about that too much.
Yeah, we saw various strategies up and down the field, and you seemed to just get yours bob on. The only people that were ahead were the 2 G-Drive teammates. I'm not sure how much you saw of those, but they were literally nose to tail for the entire race.
Yeah. I mean, I saw them in the early stages.
Yeah, talking about strategy, was that something you had in mind? Did you have a plan going into the race, or was it just run a tank till empty and then pit when you had to?
I knew it was incredibly tight, and it sort of depended on the pace of the race. And I knew pretty early on that those two slipstream each other were saving fuel, and I was going flat out to catch them. So sort of early on, I knew that it was going to be very tight. And yeah, sort of the second stint, I knew I was a lap short, so I was saving fuel for half that stint. So I laps with 2-3 seconds off what I know I could do.
Well, it was definitely good to watch. You couldn't see that you were off the pace. You were definitely still pulling away from the cars behind. And I don't know whether you noticed, but I can't exactly put my finger on. I think it was Tom Empson who was behind you at the time, but he ended up having to go into the pits for a splash and dash. So you were well and truly safe. You had a 1 minute gap behind at the end of the race. So you were definitely safe in that department. We saw traffic quickly evolved into an issue with like the later we went into the race. Obviously the cars get more spread out, and you're not just approaching GT4 traffic, you're maybe mixing in with a load of GT4 traffic, a bit of GT3 traffic, and possibly even some GTEs. Did traffic massively affect your race?
It didn't at all, really. There was one issue early on in the race where GT4 sort of reversed onto the track in front of me, but no, apart from that, I had a pretty clean run.
It definitely looked that way, but that sort of brings an end to the interview. Is there anybody you'd like to thank or shout out on the stream while you're here?
Just all our sponsors at Fiercely Forward. I'm not going to name them because I'll probably forget one. Yeah, and you guys for broadcasting it, and of course everyone for organising it. Yeah, it was a fun event. Hopefully we'll be doing another one soon.
Yeah, definitely. Let's hope so. But well done. I'll let you go, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Matthew Crisp. So he was our P3 finisher in the Fiercely Forward number 34 machine. So a great job from him. And Hasse, I'll let you decide who you're going to drag in. I think we're going to leave Ian Roots and Luke Holroyd to the end, because obviously we need to have a word with those. But I'll let you decide who we're going to drag in next.
Yeah, we're going to have a little word with Jeroen Kvikkel on the podium in the Cup Car class, and one of the drivers standing for some of the very best racing action that we have seen, if not ever, then in a very, very, very long time. Jeroen, has your heart rate fallen back to normal after that great battle?
Yes.
And there was a bit of contact, obviously not malicious, but the circumstances of such racing. How did you see that situation?
With Jordan, you mean, I suppose?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it was okay. I mean, it was a hard battle, and sometimes it was maybe a bit over the limit, but I think that goes for both sides. So it's all fine by me, and in the end it was apparently a good show, so it was nice. But at the same time, battling with Jordan, I also felt like this is gonna end in tears for one of us, and in the end it had to be for Jordan. But to be honest, it could have also ended a bit more bad for me personally, but okay, this time not, so that's good.
Well, it was amazing to watch indeed. Jeroen, is there anyone you'd like to shout out here before we'll end this interview?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I think the people who make this possible, the organizers, thanks very much for that. The race stewards as well, even though I don't always agree with them, it is fine. They did a good job, I guess. And definitely G-Drive, Maart Verlozen Noord, Scott Andrews for helping out a lot, Steve Claes, Rob Thijssen, and also Bram van Putten. All of those guys, big thanks.
And thanks for joining us in the booth. It's been a pleasure talking to Jeroen, and congrats on a great result. We're going to move on to...
Take care, guys.
Cheers. We're going to move on to the next, Jack. It's going to be up to you, I believe.
So what we're going to do is we've just had Jeroen Kvikkel in, the G-Drive Racing Exemia driver. He ended up finishing P2 in class, so we're going to bring in his teammate. It's Steve Claes. He ended up finishing P3 just behind his teammate. So Steve, what a race that was. What was that like from your perspective?
Good evening, guys, and thanks for having me in the booth. It was an intense race. I was a little bit surprised that I qualified fourth, my very, very last lap in qualify was the best. I was like, okay, I have nothing to lose. I already have a good lap time, just have to improve. And it worked. And the race, I don't know, I could held up with the top 3 quite easy. I didn't push too much. And yeah, it was a great race. I just had that one spin that was unfortunately lost 10 seconds, I think. But after the pit stops, I they had a gain a gap of 10 seconds, and I closed that. I watched the battle up front for a second from far away. I was like, "Keep on battling, guys! I'm just closing in little by little."
It almost seemed like it was handed to you. And I know you said you were watching it, and I can't wait to hear your reaction when you go back and watch it yourself on the stream. It was an absolutely crazy battle. We almost couldn't keep up with it, and it also meant it was the position was almost handed to you. So would you say that tyre and fuel degradation was really something that was on your mind throughout the race, or were you just focusing on keeping it on the circuit and then let what happens in front of you happen?
No, I really took care of the tires in the first stint. I had a few off tracks very early, and then I was thinking like, okay, if I continue like that, I will have a drive through or a stop and go. That will ruin my whole race. So I calmed down. I watched the fuel. I watched the tires, and in the second after the pit stop in the second run, the second stint, I knew I still had I don't know 20 off tracks to go, so I really didn't care anymore. I had 28, 27 in the end, I think. So I really was pushing. I wanted to close that gap, and I knew what the tires were, and yeah, I just had to be careful. A spin is very easily made. But I was closing in 1/10, 2/10, 5/10 sometimes, but maybe I got it handed to me. Because we saw a crash with Jordan on top of Radion. I don't know what happened there, but I saw them go left, right. And then the other crash with the GTE, which was, in my opinion, totally uncalled for. It just should have waited. He had nothing to gain. We were in a fight. I don't know why he put his nose there. And so, it was, from my perspective, it was just a stupid call.
Yeah, we saw a real raft of different interactions with traffic, good ones, bad ones, and then ones a bit in the middle. Would you say traffic affected your race like to a major point, or were you just focusing on getting past it as soon as you can and then letting the GTE cars by?
I think I managed the traffic very well because sometimes the GTE is not that much faster than you, so you really have to let them pass at the right moment. Like sometimes when we were too wide going up Blanchimont, I just released the throttle so I could go behind him and then follow him into Blanchimont, because there's no gain for me, no gain for him. If you go too wide through there, you both lose the speed. So it's better that you just release your throttle, the speed, you put yourself behind him, and you follow, and you keep the draft. So sometimes I did that.
Yeah, it definitely showed you. You came out on top. We saw you working your way up the order, so a great job all round. But quickly before I let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank or shout out on the stream while you're in the booth?
First of all, I want to thank the team because this was really a team effort. I want to thank Jeroen Kwekel for the setup help. He's very fast, so I was quite surprised that I could follow him, and really thumbs up to him.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. So what we will do is we will see who else we can get into the commentary booth. Should we bring in the men that made this happen, Ian Roots and Luke Holroyd?
That's a pretty good idea, I think.
Try hard to get past Jordan.
We've brought him in mid-conversation.
Oh!
Should we bring along Luke? Yeah, there he comes.
So we brought Luke in as well. So we managed to bring Ian in mid-conversation. So probably not the greatest time for him. But nonetheless, we bring them both in. Guys, what an event.
Yes, we're just talking about it with some of the drivers in the chat. We didn't think Silverstone could have got any better, but I think Luke will probably agree with me that tonight, do you know what? It's Spa. I don't know what it is about this track, but it always provides the greatest racing known to man. I think, Luke, you'd agree, yes?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think we could top Silverstone, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant. Every class, there was epic racing through them all. From the start, I mean, it was a shame to see Sim RC kind of lose at the top. I think Ian, you put it down on netcode in the direction booth. But from there, yeah, it was insane. That 911 Cup battle was something else.
Oh, it was really crazy. We were struggling to keep up with it because there was just so much happening. And then obviously it sort of went from 3 cars to 2 cars. Then they were separated by a second between them, and then they just all seemed to clump together again. It's a shame it ended the way it did, but for while it lasted, it just shows how close and almost how much trust these guys have got in each other, because they were literally door to door, if not closer.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they raced together regularly, but I think there was a lot of respect on track, and it was sad the way it ended at the top of Radion, but there was no malice in it at all. It was just one of those things. It was the slightest of touches that caused Jordan to go out of shape. And of course, he was on the AstroTurf as well, which gave him absolutely no feedback to the tarmac, which meant that once it started to tank slap, that was it. It was race over, really. It was a shame, but that battle would never have been if it hadn't have been for Kuikel getting the drive-through, don't forget, because he'd have been up the front with Josh. So that drive-through actually provided us with the greatest part of the race.
Yeah, definitely. That was by far and away the standout performance from everybody. I guess this is a question for both of you. When's this happening again?
How did I know that question was coming, Luke? Over to you.
Yeah, we was just discussing that actually. I think we'll put it out to the drivers, see which tracks we can go from there. And one thing for you, Jack, I think you need to stop picking on some of the drivers. Every time you went to one of the drivers, there seemed to be an incident there.
We're going to have no commentators left at this rate because we can't have Chaz because he does exactly the same. Hasse, you ready for it on your own?
Yeah, but I think I have the curse as well. I managed to bestow it to a couple of drivers as well, so I don't think I'm any better in the end, I'm afraid.
No, but you two guys have put on an awesome show today, and it's the first time you two guys have worked together, and I don't think it showed. I think it was a natural partnership, and you both worked very well together. And tonight's been amazing, and the drivers in the chat have all said exactly the same, and they've kind of commended us on how well put together and how well organised it is, and we work so well with Luke and Strasser, and it is a great partnership, and 2 weeks today, possibly it could be the next one.
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank the drivers. I know I don't think we always touch on it, but me and Ian were just saying then, this isn't a series. They don't have to take it serious. I know it is invitational only, but whilst they're not taking it as serious as championship points, the driving I thought across the board was fair, and it led to some epic overtakes and racing between them all. So thank you to all the drivers. For all the work they're putting as well this last couple of weeks in the practice sessions and stuff. It's really appreciated from our end.
Yeah, I totally echo that as well. At the end of the day, you don't have any racing if you don't have any drivers, and we've got a good core bunch here that seem to come back from Silverstone, and removing the LMP one was a big decision, and I think it was the right decision. They do provide some fantastic racing, the LMP ones, and some great sights on screen, but I think to take that out was the right decision in the end, and it gave us some really, really close racing. It might need a little bit of tweaking here and there, but other than that, I think we got a good format, and it works very, very well.
Definitely. I don't think me and Hasse could keep up with it. Hasse, I'm just going to hand over to you because I've pretty much run out of questions, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to run out of voice pretty soon, so I'll just leave it to you.
Yeah, I think we've had such a great evening. Thanks for putting it on, guys. Drivers as well. Thanks for taking part. I want to say to all the people who've been viewing, thanks for tuning in. It's been so great to have you along. We've had a wonderful bit of activity in the chat as well. It's been a lot of fun reading along. I've been trying to get to react to it as I would, I guess, normally do, but there's been so much action that it's just you can only have your focus at one place at a time, and that's just sometimes what happens when the racing action is good. So from me and Jack here in the booth, what an enjoyable evening it's been, and we cannot look forward enough, I think, until next time. So that's going to be a great one. And I think with that, it's rather sadly the time to round it off. Ian, Luke, do you have any last remarks you'd like to make?
Yeah, just you guys. Thank you very much. Can't have a broadcaster without a commentary team, and you two guys are outstanding tonight. So thank you very much, and all the drivers. Obviously, Luke's mentioned those. Just a great show and a great evening's entertainment. Thank you.
Yeah, and from me again, just echo that. Thanks to all the drivers. Thanks to Ian and all the team at Sim Racers World TV. I think us at PorscheSport now are kind of at a point where we understand and can help out a little bit with the organisation. So hopefully, on to the next race, where that'll be, I guess we'll speak to the drivers and go from there.
Yeah, let's hope so. I can't wait for the next one, and I'm pretty sure you feel exactly the same, Hasse. But for everybody else here at Sim Racers World TV and everybody that made this happen, so obviously PorscheSport and Strasser for sponsoring it, hope you've had an amazing evening, and we'll see you in the next one.